Welcome to my good bad brain. I'm a normal person, so I'm insane. I've got depression and ADHD, but I'm doing better since I medicated me. I'm still not always sure whether I exist or what being a person even really is, but I figured out a long time ago that being alive is beautiful.
I don't know why this one's been so hard for me to begin. It's like making my skin crawl just listening to my voice. I think that's something all of us go through. I have noticed I've gotten better at it. You know this thing everybody will say, I hate my voice. I can't, hearing my voice on a recording, can't stand it. Or, seeing yourself on camera. I've gotten pretty immune to it, or inoculated, I should say. Certainly not immune, because I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through right now if I were immune to it. But, I've edited myself for countless hours, and it's easy to sort of have this object-subject relationship with the version of you on the screen. I picked it up working with Tony Valenzuela a lot of Black Box TV. We were creating stuff together for quite some time. He remains a good friend. And he had this really wonderful habit of referring to him, even if I would be sitting next to him editing me. And I do that a lot now. I do that all the time. Him, it's easy. I think it helps to edit. You dissociate any sort of value of yourself or sense of yourself, because I don't, if you saw yourself walking down the street from a third person perspective from the back or something like that, you wouldn't recognize you. You never see the back of your head, and nor do you hear your voice outside of the resonant cavity of your own noggin and your own skull and bones and teeth and stuff. So you don't even know what you sound like. And for a lot of us, that, sucks to hear it. And you go, oh God, that's me. I think because it reverberates in your head a little deeper, maybe a little richer. I don't know. But I had a banana and I drank some LaCroix, and I think it's making me gassy. And maybe the sugar, the banana is inflaming my tissues in my nose, and I feel so nasal, and my skin's just crawling, hearing myself. And I've tried and restarted and done this thing over and over again, but I figured out, fuck it, that's the whole point of this podcast. Let's just embrace what you're trying to avoid, is what my high school theater teacher used to always say. So I'm going to embrace what I'm trying to avoid. I think Bern Piven told him that. I am buzzing for some reason right now. I think I have a harder time liking what I hear of myself or see of myself. There's like a direct proportional relationship to how much it matters to me. I always thought, especially auditions, acting, and stuff like that, if I really wanted something, I did terrible on it. The harder I worked, the worse I'd do, I feel like. Which is probably not totally true, and a bad lesson to tell myself to reinforce that. But the point is, the more something matters to me, the more I hate it, the more I fuss over it, the more I'm like, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't perfect. And there's got to be some kind of lesson in that, that like you can overdo a thing, you can over-examine a thing. The version of this I always think the most is I remember I was in a play when I was 18 or 19, and I was really excited about it. It was a Mary Zimmerman play, and she had won a MacArthur grant, which made her, it's the Genius Grant, and she had already won a Tony, and she was she's amazing. She's this genius theater artist, and she was doing a new work, and I got to be in it eventually, but at the callback, I just asked question after question after question about trying to understand where she felt my character was at emotionally. I don't know, just question after question, which I earnestly wanted the answer to, but also I think I was just being fussy and smart, quote unquote, trying to show that I gave a shit and I had a brain or something. Eventually she just goes, I don't want to put too fine a point on it. I just want it quieter. And I don't know. That's I think what I come to in these sort of things where you fucking can't deal with yourself. You hate every choice you make, you second guess every choice you make. Maybe it's just because the thing you're trying to do matters to you so much. And maybe it doesn't have to be like a specific project here or something like that. Maybe it's just your life, the way you're living your life. It actually matters to you so much. And that's why you have so much difficulty picking a path, making a choice moment to moment, and loving the choice, liking it, being like, you know what, no, I stand firm in what I did and what I'm gonna do. That's what I wanted to do for that project, for that thing, for this, path on my life. All right, so this past week, we launched My Good Bad Brain, and thanks to you listening and participating in the Patreon, and I'm really proud of how it's going. The feedback already has been really lovely. It's doing better than I imagined it would, and that means the world to me, because this may be the most important thing. I don't know. That's like saying like which of your favorite kids or something. But this project resonates with me a lot. It feels very true to who I am and what I'm doing in the world. And so I'm very grateful that it's being received well. But that also means it matters so much to me. And my good bad brain has this fucking thing that happens to me that is like postpartum depression or something. Whenever I make something new and put it out, I feel terrible right away. And not even feel terrible. I have a depressive episode that lasts until I notice it, I guess, and sometimes longer. And it got me thinking a lot about like what depression is. I kept putting off working on today's episode to the last minute as usual, and my room got worse and worse, like piled up with just junk and clothes and just so filthy, and that tends to be a reflection of my headspace, I think. And thing over thing, I was so numb all week. I was smoking tons of weed, way more than I would say I usually do, playing more video games than I usually do, and just not getting things done. And that I don't think productivity is a good sign of worth or depression or not or anything, but if you're not functioning and you wish to be, if you don't feel like you can feel yourself, if you don't feel connected to your universe and world and feel paralyzed and can't explain why, that is how I characterize depression for myself primarily, this non-functioning thing. And sometimes it's not even a sadness or a anguish. It's a sort of ennui. It's sort of a nothing. And I realized I was in one of those. And I was like, oh, what a surprise. Coinciding with this lovely launch of this thing that people are being nice about and that you're proud of and is good, is out in the world now. And I noticed I was less present on my social media. I was less anything just because I was in it, I lost like a week to it. So I thought, as I was here to do this and what I want to do, right, as we continue to evolve this thing, I thought in these little beginning portions, I could maybe offer practical advice that I have learned for myself. Again, not as a professional. I'm pretty adamant about that on My Good Bad Brain, that I am not a doctor. I'm not a professional of any kind. Some kinds, but whatever. It's not split hairs. But I have lived my life a long time with my dumbass good bad brain, and I got some things I know work for me, or maybe for other people that I'm close to, and I feel like it might be a nice thing to share some of those. So here's today's little silly thing that occurred to me today. Clean your room. And if it's not your room, clean your car or your kitchen or just a pan that you have left for a while, or sharpen your knife. That that's a cook thing. That's such a cook thing, leaving my knives unsharpened. That's so weird for most people. But something cleaning. Clean your room. Why? Why does this matter? I think there's this terrible thing that I used to talk about with my close friends, that smart people aren't happy. You get this idea that a smart person, a happy person, is a dumb person, because a smart person knows, and in that knowing knows only a dumb person would be happy. And I think a lot of smart people keep themselves really unhappy because of this association. And I have a similar one, I think, to messiness. I've read enough little clickbaity articles, and I'm sure the algorithm finds me because they know that I'll like it. that say basically something to the effect of, a cluttered space is the sign of a brilliant mind, a disordered space is the sign of intelligence, and the creatives, always live in this mess. And I have identified with that, I guess, feeling creative and feeling like I'm a smart person, and that the clutter just reflected the way my brain worked. It was all over the place, but I knew where everything was. But I came to realize I don't really know where everything is. And this idea that my brain or my physical environment is something I have no control over, and that is just willy-nilly, wild, all about craziness, this beautiful storm. Isn't it wonderful? Aren't I so fascinating? Aren't I so wonderful in my messiness? That actually it just kind of makes my life hard and unpleasant, and there's no space for anything else there. There's no space to breathe or think. I've noticed I think better in places with high ceilings and a lot of space, and that doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't need physical space to project theoretical ideas into, but I do. I don't know. It helps me. I definitely think better in big open spaces than I do inside elevators or whatever. So clearly my physical space has some impact on me. And so I went to clean my room. I was like, well, here's one tool I can rely on. I think of it like a small certain tool, like a good pocket knife. It's always there in your pocket and useful and tiny. Just a little thing. Clean your room. I cleaned my whole room. And I had the twilight sort of light starting. I'm late in the day, too late in the day to be drinking as much coffee as I am and getting to... getting things done. And the light's coming in the window in just that way, in that 45 degree angle way. Not 45, what am I saying? Flatter than that, 120? No, that's the same thing with the other right. Math. Almost horizontal. And I swear I can hear kids playing, coming on the breeze, little gentle breezes. Zephyr, you can call it. Technically qualifies as a zephyr. And I felt myself breathe. And I felt my head open up, and I felt my heart open up a little, and a little bit of tension undo itself from my shoulders as I looked at this space, my space, literal just space. It's there for me to do whatever I want with, to just be in. And I thought about my mom yelling at me my whole life to clean up and make my bed and clean my room and blah, 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 blah. Being so mad at her about it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not, it's just material world bullshit. It's nothing. And I had this moment here sitting in my own room. Here I am of my own volition, cleaning it the fuck up as a fucking grown up. And feeling so good. And thinking, oh, my mom just wanted me to feel this. She just wanted me to know that I can, using my own hands and intention, I can shape my space into something peaceful and kind to me and good, calm. That I'm allowed to make a little eye in the storm of my entire existence and just be there. I mean, this is already splintering off into a million other thoughts of, thinking about how atoms aren't supposed to be divisible, and then we find out under atoms there's quarks and neutrons or whatever the fuck physics, quantum physics, and if you keep getting down smaller and smaller and smaller, there's still just so much more space between particles than particles. And that it's all just space. And that anything else that isn't just vacuum is imagination. It's passing through, that there's some root to the universe, some truth that I'm allowed to touch into. Any of us are at any time. And all it takes is that touch. There's that book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which I didn't even read the whole book. There's one sentence. That's all you need in the book, the whole book. You need to write the whole book so people can buy the book and you have a business off your one brilliant thought. But the one brilliant thought is, if a thing does not bring you joy, get rid of it. And it says the way to figure that out is just touch it. Pick it up. When you're trying to purge your closet and get rid of your stuff, I'm a pretty bad pack rat. So I just, I did this at one point. It was such a joy. Picked it up. And he could feel. They said, yeah, you're right. Just like the book says. You picked it up. Don't care. It does not bring me joy. Out. Garbage. Or Goodwill. Whatever. Space. You're allowed. I don't know. All right. So that's my one. That's a practical. There you go. That's practical. If you're having a bad one, if you know that you're in another episode, that's one tool that I know works. Clean something. Just clean something. Something for you. Something that is yours. And maybe in that, allow yourself to know that you can create space for yourself at any time. You can create space for those bad feelings that you can't get out of. You can create space. You can make that for yourself to be in every waking moment. Okay. Today on the podcast is the wonderful Lily Marston. I met Lily through Clever, obviously Clever TV, which is a YouTube network that what is it? Pop culture and stuff like that is what it's known for. Big news channel, pop culture news and stuff like that. I fell in there because I got hired to be a host for a show that is now defunct called Totally Clever, which turned into like a Man on the Street show. And it was a whole weird job because I was like never a pop culture person, but I wound up there just through, gigs, media, I don't know, LA. And actually, I think it was Lisa Schwartz who recommended me for that job, and then I got hired there for a bit and met Tracy Stumpf, who's also gonna be on this podcast later, and blah 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 blah. I worked there on and off. I still work there on and off, and they have this one part of Clever that's more like lifestyle. And if there's one person that you'd come to that was really like a driving force making that happen, I really, in my estimation and understanding and seeing it would be Lily Marston. Lilz, when I met her, was still an intern. I believe we discussed it on the podcast. And Lilz would, produce videos, edit videos. And there was this little channel, Clever Style, that had barely any viewers relative to the rest of the stuff. And they weren't really doing anything with it. And they were making lifestyle things. And one thing led to another. And Lilz filled in and did an episode of Beauty Break, and the rest is history. She's so funny and real and relatable and just competent as fuck. She would edit the stuff herself. She'd just get it done, and that is to me very inspiring. Something that I struggle with a lot of my life is just getting it done, And we go into it more in depth in the podcast. Because the way this ended up going was I want to talk to people about how they do the things they do in their life. Lilz talks about her suffering with anxiety a little bit and how she works with that and how she worked with graduating and moving out into the world, and it's all really wonderful. And I want to make it like really clear. I'm going to repeat myself through this podcast, but what she accomplished at Clever in building Clever Style into this big channel is not because she had a big companies spend money to try to do what she did and can't do it. She really has something. And I try to steal some of that information about what that thing is, how she looks at the world, how she approaches her work, how she moves through it with her brain and her hands and her heart, the same thing I guess I want to know from everybody. And it's just wonderful. It splinters off into a lot of stuff. Actually, we end up talking about ancient aliens and politics, and the adherence people feel to ancient texts and the confusion we both seem to feel around that, whether those texts are biblicals biblicals, Bibles, or constitutions, or what have you, we get a little bit snotty at times about some of the, well, I do about, establishment government stuff. But hey, that's me, okay? That's who I'm going to be. Anyway, this is a long-ass preamble. I'm probably going to do these like this more often. So I hope you like them. More practical little tidbits in the big intros and whatnot. All right. I love Lily Marston. She's amazing. And you are all amazing. Please, if you enjoy this, check out the Patreon. I mean, if you're already this far in, you may be digging it if you listen to me ramble for 20 minutes before getting into the Lily Marston part. Patreon.com/mygoodbadbrain. That stuff really matters to me. And if you're already on there, I'm going to be starting the rewards and whatnot coming this week, I guess, because the month is here. So just little stuff, this kind of thing, me being solo. There's one of them I'll, draw you picture. A la the way I'm doing everybody else's pictures on the cover. You get a little good bad portrait, I'm gonna put poems up if you like the poems and things when I use my brain and heart for that nonsense. Yeah, check it out. The support means a lot. And you know what? If you can just leave reviews. I know that everybody on the podcast says it, but goddamn, it makes a difference. It makes a difference, sure, in the ratings and getting people to go, oh, this has 5 stars. Oh, maybe I'll try it out. But also, it makes a difference to me. It just fucking feels so nice. I might even force y'all to sit through some of the nice, things that people write because they're so wonderful and so kind. Anyway, I think we're really doing something here. That's enough of me doing this. And now enjoy the next, 2 hours of me and lilz doing the same thing. All right, thank you. I love you. Bye. Okay, here we go. Into it. My good bad brain. Bye.
And I talked to her, asked her questions about Clever for 2.5 hours.
For the documentary thing?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's weird. It's nice. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Fine.
I'm enjoying your comfortable couch.
I love this couch.
It's nice.
I sleep on this couch as much as I sleep in my bed.
So I'm probably sitting on your sweat juices. But.
Yeah, well, whatever. Actually, yeah, it is weird. A lot of, I think, our body mass, I guess we burn off as gas.
What?
Did you know that?
Not where I thought you were going. I was going to be actually, I know we're talking about mental health and stuff, that I actually sweat a lot when I sleep sometimes.
Well, mental health is physical health, is a big thing for me. Because my good bad brain, that's what I call it, is our sense of self is just a bunch of thoughts and things that are all produced by chemicals and electrical signals and these physical concepts inside of a physical object. So the idea that we separate neck and shoulder pain or the sweating thing we're going to get into or your stomach health or whatever, we separate that from mental health. Do you know most of your serotonin or dopamine or whatever is made by bacteria in your gut. So if you
Is that why food makes you really happy?
Well, I think food makes you happy for a lot of reasons.
The opposite.
Yes, or the opposite. But I do think this is exactly right. I remember I worked at a health food store when I was a kid, and they'd always be food is medicine, and we'd talk about that. It's true. We don't think about food affecting our mental health, our mood, or stuff like that. But the one I was getting at is gut bacteria, your flora and fauna. If you have healthy gut bacteria, that's who manufactures a lot of serotonin, the stuff that makes you feel happy or not. So sometimes people who are really depressed, it's because they have a terrible gut illness or they have terrible gut fauna, and so they're not producing enough serotonin to the brain. Or even there's a lot of study about depression as an inflammatory disease. People are saying sometimes people have terrible chronic inflammation problems, or they're eating things they're allergic to or whatever, and that inflammation, when they literally started treating depression with some ibuprofen, just an anti-inflammatory drug, you can get over the counter, right? Usually for muscle pain, and people stop being depressed. And when you think about food inflammates you. If you eat something you're allergic to, or sugar and carbohydrates.
It's funny. We were actually just talking about this. Who was I with? That my hairdresser. That sometimes that she was saying that she thinks it's sodium. That I haven't really been eating as much sodium the last week. Yeah. And also just. Not what we were talking about, but I also haven't been drinking quite as much soda. Yeah. And I noticed that my jawline can be either I'll wake up after drinking or eating. Same with alcohol too. That I'll wake up and it's kind of swollen and it just feels more double chin-esque. But then I won't, or I won't eat as much one day, and I wake up the next day and it's oh, There's a jawline there.
Yeah, that's what happens. Well, okay, because salt.
When you just feel gross too, which would make you depressed. So I understand that.
Well, alcohol is just sugar. Like your body processes it the same as sugar, which is why you can kind of feel like you have a hangover from just eating a fuck ton of carbs, and also why, like, that's why when you get really super duper drunk, if you pass out, sometimes you like wake up at 4 a.m, you have a lot of energy and be hungry. It's because your body's broken it down into sugar, and then all the energy from the sugar boost hits your system, and so you wake up in the middle of the night.
That doesn't really happen to me. That doesn't really happen to me.
It doesn't happen to you?
No, I feel like my body doesn't break down the alcohol, and that's my problem. I have major alcohol issues, though.
No, but you drink beer mostly, right?
Because I will get violently ill if I drink anything else. Like 2 shots, and I'm throwing up every 20 minutes for... I was going to say 5 hours, but it's more like 10.
I have a feeling it's connected to that because I think beer is closer to a food product because it's got other carbs and stuff in it. Hard alcohol is, I think, the one more that you pass out and then it breaks down into sugar and then you...
Well, and that's, I also feel like I used to... I mean, I could kind of chalk it up to beer is okay because it's like the least amount, so it's not as like intense hitting my system all at once. Yeah,
that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Plus, you're processing it a little bit with some other quote unquote food.
Exactly.
Like it comes with its own bready carbs. That makes sense. So we were gonna say inflammation. So the thing. Salt is like acts as like a little electrical bridge. It kind of like does something where with hydration with water. So the salt literally holds on to extra water in your body, which is part of the reason that like so your cells are more inflated and you have more like double chin feelings or whatever. Also, this is the easiest way I visualized it was carbohydrate. It's carbon with water on it. That if you eat a carbohydrate is basically like every carbon atom breaks down and then grabs onto 4 water atoms. So you literally like inflate. Swell up and hold on to it. Which I just being able to visualize that was so interesting. There's all this weird stuff though with body mechanics. Like you can use that actually because the carbohydrate water thing, and also just sugar and how it spikes your insulin. Another thing that affects your mood intensely and makes you like fall asleep. Like later you'll have like this counteraction to your insulin. Like bodybuilders, like if you have a lot of muscle mass, carbs work differently because carbs will be shuttling and working their ass off to fuel your muscles. So they literally, like if you have a big muscle mass to like fat ratio in your body when you eat carbs, like they'll just go to fill your muscles up with water and stuff. And if you can goose it a little bit, you can actually like sort of pull your subcutaneous water out of your skin and into your muscles, so the muscles get big and your skin gets thin. That's one of the bodybuilders do this trick.
You lost me at subcutaneous.
I know, it's crazy. I just think the body's so fascinating how malleable it is. Literally based on the things you eat, and they change.
Well, that's even my mom and her husband. They first told me they were like that they were practicing a vegan diet, and I was like, I don't believe that for 2 seconds.
Right.
And she's like, well, I mean, we eat chicken once a week, and then we eat fish once a week. So I was like, so you're not vegan at all?
Not at all.
Opposite day.
And like just butter.
Yeah, right. But I guess they did cut out most dairy, like I think all dairy, most sugar, all sugar even maybe, I don't know, but regardless, my mom is not thrilled because Ken has lost like over 20 pounds and it's been 2 weeks. He lost 8 pounds the first week.
That's amazing.
Like, how do you lose more than a pound a day?
Yeah. Well,
and now she's lost like 2 pounds and he's lost like over 20, and she's like, I don't understand why is he getting affected so much differently.
I'd be very curious to know what they're actually eating, but also, well, what was your sweating thing?
Oh, just that I think it comes from anxiety, but that so many times, most consistently, I wake up at like 8 a.m. on the dot, which I know is like late for most people. But
no, is
that early?
That's early for
that
me.
Makes me feel better. For like Jocelyn and Aaron, I feel like they wake up early.
I know people like
I can't function. I can function later in the day.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of a lie too. I go to sleep pretty early. But anyway, that I'll wake up kind of almost in a panic.
Yeah.
And not like over anything. I don't know if sometimes I feel like it's subconsciously because I have a work video scheduled for 8 a.m.
Just a low
so
level
it's like,
anxiety.
Is everything okay? Did I say something that offends someone? But
does that bother you?
I don't. I think it might more subconsciously than it actually does. Or it's that something's wrong with the video. I don't know. But that I'll wake up even before that though, and will at like 5 a.m. sometimes drenched in sweat. But like nothing's really on my mind. Like actually, like that I'm like very consciously thinking about.
You have nightmares? Do you remember having nightmares?
I never remember my dreams. So that's one of my theories.
That is interesting. That could be. I mean, it sounds like a lot of anxiety. Well, you have an interesting journey, even in the time I've known you. I feel like that would be, well, you know, It's weird. I mean, I've known you know a while, 4 or 5 years.
I know. When did Totally Clever start?
I have no idea.
Good times.
But when I was
I
Totally Clever,
I just downloaded that clip.
You did?
And it's like Tracy introducing it. She's like, we're going to talk to celebrities and go on red carpets, blah, blah. And then you have your snarky line. And you're like every other entertainment show out there.
Oh, my
And
God.
then Tracy's like, yeah, but like we're aware of it. So it makes it more fun. It's great. It's on like
what
a
a
movie
good
set.
idea for that show. Well, that's like, I mean, that was so funny, man. There's just the evolution of that thing and whatever Clever is and stuff.
If you guys don't know, Jarrett used to be on a show called Totally Clever that took on very many identities. But when did that start? Like 2013?
I'm so bad at time. I have no sense of time.
Probably
but
2014.
It like surprised me how long ago it was. I think 4 years.
Yeah,
that sounds right. But when that was happening, you were mostly editing stuff still and producing things.
Well, so I started as an intern, was producing, but I was working on all the ad campaigns, which made me kind of want to jump off a bridge. But it was a lot of like, the ad campaigns were very like forced and very branded. So it was like, well, we aren't getting that many views, so we kind of have to do it. And then I would be the one producing it. So it wasn't anything I actually really liked that I was making. It was just like, I guess this works and it shows the brand and the but and then
like, what were some of those videos?
The show was called Tutorial Tuesday, and that was like Beauty Break before it turned into Beauty Break. And it was like giving celebrity makeup tutorials, and Megan was doing them. That's how I met Megan. We would go to their apartments and film because she was a beauty guru, and that was like the beauty gurus were in their heyday in 2013.
I remember that. That was wild.
This was so I was producing this show, and then it got bought a few times, so we kept doing it, but like no one was really watching it. And then eventually they moved it to Clever Style, which was like dead. It had been on Clever TV.
Right.
And had like no subscribers, and they were like, maybe it'll do better on the Style channel. And I was like, thank you. And then at that point I was like, well, no one's watching it. Like, I'll just kind of screw around and see if I can make something that at least will make my job more enjoyable. Because like, why would you want to make something that you don't like? So then it stopped being about like, we know everything about style.
Little pause on that. That is actually very profound what you just said. But I don't think people really realize that, like, when they can't figure out like what to do with their lives, like what to make or what to do.
Start with what you're actually interested in.
Literally do that. Literally make the thing you wish existed.
Well, and that's what I always say is that everyone goes, what are your goals? What are your dreams? And I'm like, honestly, I don't really think about that on a daily basis. I just kind of like try to do my best at everything that I'm doing. So it's like, even if you're not enjoying it, you're really not going to enjoy it if then you have a shitty outcome.
Why do you do that? Try your best.
Because it could lead to another opportunity where you can try your best at something you do enjoy. But also, I think there's so many jobs out there that you don't even know exist. So it's like, I was in a job that was like kind of what I wanted to do. So it's like, if I didn't really have any supervision, I could kind of make it into something that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but it wasn't that. So I was like, let's change it a little.
Right.
And then I've always really enjoyed editing. But when I got hired there, they definitely weren't like, Lily's going to be an editor. It was our post department was like very separate. And I would like give notes on edits, but it was always really obnoxious for me because not that anything was necessarily wrong with the editors, but it was like, if I'm going to give notes that are like, cut this 3 seconds, cut this 4 seconds, cut the music here, do this. If it's like very basic things, I would much rather just go in rather than have to write down all of the time codes, then like watch it again to make sure they did it and like understood what I was saying. If I could go do it myself in 10 minutes, that was going to be easier. So I started editing.
Another profound lesson there. Here, this is probably, I can see how this is going to shape up while we keep talking. Just for a second here. I don't even know if you know, but who you are. I feel
don't.
Nobody does. But what you have done, okay, let me just say this. When I first started working at Clever, I was also in a very like, this time of my phase I still am in, where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing ever, whatever. I randomly got this job at this channel like as a host, but I came in there with a very much of a, like, having got a gig there, not billing myself, it was just like, all right, I'm just talent here, I don't know, whatever. And everybody gets their spot in production, like you see who they are. And I met you, and you were just like an editor producer kind of then, like intern. And to be at a company in that position, I don't think people understand what, first of all, like any creative company, the leap from the business side or administrative side or like the working engine part of it over to the creative side is usually an uncrossable divide. Like I have a friend, Jason actually, who's on this podcast, who's doing an amazing job of starting to bridge that gap. Went to school for music, worked in licensing for music, always wanted to be a musician, and getting from within to convince the people that you are actually a creative voice as well and really good at it and should be listened to. And then not just that, but then to prove it by like being incredibly successful. You took a channel that had far less than 1 million subscribers, like 50,000 or something. And you built it to what, 2.7 million now in 4 years?
Well, I was even, because I've been working on this 10-year documentary situation. It was, so we started doing it and Megan was still like the main host. And then I would like there would be occasionally a topic that I'd be like, well, it'd be good if 2 people were in it. So like her and Jocelyn would both be in it.
Yeah.
Or also Megan got her nose done.
Oh yeah,
so she
I remember
was gone
that.
for
Those
like a
videos are
month.
amazing.
So because she was gone, it was like, well, it was funnier if we did 2 people. How about me and Joss try it?
Yeah.
And it was always Jocelyn from day one was always like, you're a star, you need to be on camera. And I
Yes,
was
Joss
like,
is amazing.
and I've never wanted to host celebrity news, so that was never something I was into. So this was like the first opportunity to even really do something on air that was, at least, I mean, what we were doing wasn't exactly what I was like passionate about, but it was like trying celebrity beauty secrets. But getting to do that, then it was like all the comments would be like, oh, who's that? And then it would give me the confidence to do it again. Because otherwise I never plan on doing
Okay, we're definitely going to get back into that because so you did this amazing thing that's very hard to do. It's a huge accomplishment to build any channel past 1 million subscribers. Yes, one could argue that it's a company, but I don't think people realize that it was you.
At the time, no one was. So at the time, I was
you were
literally
editing, you were making it.
I was
you were creating
uploading.
the voice.
I was making the thumbnails. I was titling them. I was
so really not very different. That were you getting paid at that time? Were you an employee finally? At least I know. I saw the look on your face. And I don't mean like were you rich then?
I mean, I was getting paid as a producer.
So one could
not
argue
as an editor and graphic designer and content manager.
But I'm just trying to point out that you basically you did everything a normal quote unquote YouTuber alone in their bedroom would have had to do, pretty much.
I would say I had a couple more resources in terms of like, no, I didn't have to buy all the cameras we were using.
That was all there.
There was a sound person, but not at first, honestly. At first it was like one of the camera people would do it and it never sounded good. The camera people, I think at one point we only had one for 3 cameras. And then eventually it started randomly doing well. And that was when everyone was like, wait, what do you mean it got 100,000 views?
Yes. So this is what I'm saying. Giant companies with millions of dollars behind it putting teams together to make stuff can't create channels that have 2-something million subscribers in a few years. So you were able to cross an impossible divide from businessy, administrative to creative, and then create a wildly successful channel that you were at the heart of, like within a corporate structure.
I honestly... The only way it all happened, and it wouldn't have had they been a little more like, they had a very like loose management style to begin with, and they already trusted me because I'd been there as
managers listening like, hey, loosen up, let people do their thing.
So I had started as an intern, so I'd known them now like a year and a half probably. So they trusted me, and I was always like helping Dana and Jocelyn do everything creatively for the celebrity news side. And I would like occasionally help edit, and I'd occasionally be like, oh, I can make that in Photoshop really fast. But then it came to this, and the only reason they really kept the show going for as long as they did was because a couple people, but like, I think it was like CoverGirl, Sally Hansen, a couple of companies did buy into it. And it was like, it made enough money during those deals that they would keep it on for a little longer.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time that literally no one was paying attention to what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they let me. It was just kind of like, no one really asked and I just did it. And then I was not costing any money.
Turn that a little bit. We're talking to the front. Yeah, there you go.
And since it wasn't costing any money, because I was doing, aside from the camera person and sound person, if we use them.
Right.
It was no cost. So they were like, okay, Lily, whatever, do it.
You did this amazing thing that's very hard. People try to do it all the time. People don't succeed at it. And I feel like your demeanor in general is like so no big deal in general about stuff that sometimes I feel like you don't even register what a big deal that is and what an accomplishment that is. And so I feel like what I'm going to keep doing is pausing you when you say certain things and going like, so this is another aspect of how to be successful that this person does that other people don't.
I feel like a lot of it comes down to that a lot of people probably could do it if they were in the right situation. I just had a really lucky, I think luck is preparation and opportunity together. So like, I do know how to edit, and I like do feel like I have good storytelling / people skills. So I was able to do that kind of stuff. But I think it was that a girl that I knew from high school worked at Clever in the very beginning, and that was how I got the internship. And it was because I didn't have anything else to do because I just graduated college. Right. And then once I started, I was like, okay, sure. I kind of became friends with Dana and Jocelyn and really started working with them a lot. And then it just was like, opportunities that like I didn't necessarily make for myself, but like
Sure.
I was ready when they came.
That's true. I guess that's actually nice of you to say, because I didn't mean to be going down this thing necessarily, because I truly don't believe, I think we all learn, one of the hard lessons to learn in America is that meritocracy doesn't exist. Is that like, it is true that just because you're good and do good work doesn't mean you're going to get ahead on your merits, but we're told that it exists, and which is a toxic thing, because then you get people in positions of power who are clearly awful, and we all just kind of have an innate like, well, he must be good, he must deserve to be there.
Well, and I think that happens to a lot of people that are just like, they graduate kind of from like seniority and not from doing something.
Right. Yes, which is terrible.
Which I think there's a lot of like high up people in companies, like the SVP kind of situation, where they're not even really doing anything anymore, but they're making decisions about something that they have not been. The
oddity, I mean, I didn't go to college. I've never really entered into that corporate normal world at all.
I didn't learn anything in college.
But from observing it, right? And we've observed it very closely in this sort of VC funding, startup kind of world adjacent that YouTube and new media has been over, watching it grow. Like the tendency to fail upwards is astonishing to me. It's like, well, they had a job pretty like this at another company, and not a lot of people have that. So why don't we just like push them up another? It's like that happens constantly.
Well, and then I think of also, I've had this conversation a few times lately, that a lot of people in like marketing I'm not talking about the company I work for, even this was for someone else's situation, but that like a marketing situation, that it's a bunch of usually old white dudes sitting in a room that think they know everything. And I'm like, how could like a 50-year-old white guy know what would be best marketed to like a young girl, like millennial? Like, how does that make any sense? Because at the end of the day, maybe they like went to a really good school and got a marketing degree, but at the time YouTube didn't even exist and the internet wasn't really as prominent as it is now. And it's like, they couldn't have possibly learned the stuff that other people, like, I think millennials now will start to be so much more qualified for jobs because you just innately know so much about technology that like someone will ask you to do something and you wouldn't even think twice. But if you asked someone that was 50, they literally wouldn't know what you were talking about.
I think that's definitely true. I also think, I wonder if millennials, because now they were like, are better adapted to learn new things because they were,
I teach myself new things all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. Wait, okay, so hold the fuck on. We're turning into this weird like Tao of Lily thing.
I know this wasn't the point of this.
This is really good, because I mean, there's no point to any of these, but like this, it's a self-helpy-ish kind of podcast, because I'm trying to like, one of the big things I want to do when I started was bring people on who do amazing things. I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of brilliant and successful and sort of like iconoclastic people, like very unique people. And I just want to steal their secrets. I want to like know why they are how they are.
Well, I think one big thing though is also that no matter how successful you are, or if you like other people might think you're doing good, or school.
See, that's annoying. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. But like, I think it's weird that people would mind that. Yeah. Because when you say those words, I know what you mean. Yeah. That means you've effectively communicated.
Exactly.
And what is it about the people who go like, it's not good, it's well? What?
Well, and like, who decided that? That's dumb.
Yeah, it's so...
Who says the word well? Like, I'm doing well. No.
Literally, I do say that, but I also say I'm doing good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also the idea that I'm doing good is actually, like, even philosophically, much deeper and more interesting. If you say I'm doing well, the idea is it's an adverb, and you're saying, like, the way you are doing is well. So, okay, so you're doing great. But if you say I'm doing good, like... that literally means you're doing the noun of good. I'm out in the world doing good.
Well, that's not usually what I mean when I say
that. But this is what I'm saying. I think there's odd little funny tricks of language and metaphor that we're not conscious of that end up having these accidentally profound things to them, and one of them is that if somebody says I'm doing good, and someone else goes it's actually well, I'm doing well. Oh, okay. First of all, what are you trying to help me? Now you're just trying to police my language to have a little bit of power token or something like that, and I'm stupid. Well, okay, well, you're over there policing me. I'm out here doing good. Okay, I'm trying to do good in the world, good for myself, good for other people. And if you're doing good, it's moving forward into more good. And I just think it's ironic, you know what I mean? It's ironic that only assholes would be like, don't do good, do well. Anyway,
I appreciated that.
This is what I got from
I liked it.
So far, these are my Taos of Lily things. One, any job you get, work as hard as you can at it, like just for the sake of it. And you had it from an incentive base kind of thing. You were saying, because you don't know, maybe you'll get a chance to do something closer. But so far, I'm going to not even worry about that part. Do whatever you're doing, do the best you can do at it. You also said you're humble. So despite the fact that you succeeded and worked very fucking hard at it, I've seen you work crazy hours, crazy weeks. Also, the first answer you go is, well, I also had a lot of luck and there was a lot of like fortunate things going on around me. So that too, understanding yourself in the context of a greater whole, very profound, very evolved thinking. And what was the first one you were talking about? Oh, if you aren't sure what to make, if you want to make something, just make what you want to make what you want to see in the world. So far you've got 3 big fucking like profound like principles of being lilz.
Well, and this leads me to what I was starting to say before, is that you're like, oh, you've realized this, blah blah, but at the end of the day I feel like I'm still just as like, oh, what the fuck am I doing, than anyone else.
Okay, yes, I think that's something a lot of people experience, and I think a lot of
our, like on Clever specifically, a lot of our viewers and followers are very like, oh my God, they're successful. And it was like, I don't think necessarily they think it was easy, but I think they're like, the amount of emails and messages I get that are like, it's like, what do I major in college? Or what do I do here? How do you get that job? They want like the steps and like the secret manual to be like, how do I do what you did? And I'm like, there absolutely isn't one.
Totally.
I don't have one for what I even did. Like, looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know how any of that happened.
Yeah. I think there's a thing about that, like, okay, people want to plan first. Anything in entertainment, there's no fucking answer. But I've come to think, I think that's for everything. There's just no fucking answer to you. And I know you're taught in schools because we're taught under this authority, and there's this idea that there's a way to do everything, and that you're going to do this school, you're going to do well there, you're going to get into this school, and they're going to do well there, and they're going to get into, and there's like a path. I think the lie of the path that maybe 10% of the population extremely generously, the path works for them.
Well, and it's funny because honestly, that is really the root of where I didn't ever have anxiety really growing up. That was not a problem for me. And I think a lot of people are also like, oh, I have anxiety, I get like anxious. Getting anxious occasionally and having anxiety are not the same thing. But
can you distinguish that a little bit?
That it's like, if something like made you slightly uncomfortable,
right,
that like would make anyone uncomfortable, I wouldn't really chalk that up to anxiety. But if it's like something that is more like debilitating and it's like a deeper situation where it's like you are getting anxious for no reason and you don't know how to explain it, and it's like physically manifesting. And I think now looking back, at the time I didn't really know what it was, but I think it's that we're taught growing up that there's this plan, you go to college and you do this and you get a job and then you're happy. And I graduated college and I was like, wait, what do you mean?
The craziest thing is when the first time you step outside of the system, and it might be after college, it might be after high school. You don't know. I don't know when it might be after your first internship. It might be after grad school, and then your first internship, and then your fellowship, whatever. Eventually, there's going to be a day when you step out into the world and you realize everyone is just screaming, running around naked with no fucking idea what's going on. And we're just like taking these horrible monkey brains and trying to draw some sense on top of it. And
I think that's one thing that you need to stop feeding kids, this lie that everything's like super, like you do this and you check this box and then you're good to go. And I'm like, no, because then when you get there, you like can't handle it. And I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be the rest of my life? And at the time I was like interning at Clever for free. So I was commuting to Hollywood 3 days a week, driving in like 3 hours of traffic a day at least. And then I was working at a burger place 3 days a week at home as like a hostess, and then 1 day off. And literally I would be like, oh my God, am I just gonna be working and miserable for the rest of my life? And I genuinely thought that. Like I was like, and I think it was that I had so much fun in college and it was such like a carefree like bubble distraction. And on the other hand, it like taught me so much. I met so many people and I think it really socially shaped me. But then I like leave and I'm like, oh, the real world, like you don't go drinking every day and you do have like responsibilities and it's not fun and you don't have all of your friends like readily available. I like couldn't handle it. I literally just break down. So then went to the doctor and was like, I just felt awful all the time, like palm sweating, shaky, like just terrible. And then I took medicine for a little bit.
Can you say what you took?
I don't remember.
It was for anxiety?
Yeah.
Was it like a sedative of some kind, like a Xanax-y kind of thing?
No. She gave me Xanax, but it was like that's like for the minor fix or not minor fix. That's like what you take when you're actually like stressed, but it's like for long-term change. It's more and it wasn't an antidepressant, but it was like an
Mirtazapine? That's what I take.
I took Prozac at one point, and then there was another. They like bump you around to a few to like see what works for you.
Sure. Did you find some that were bad and some that were good for you?
Honestly, I don't think I ever really noticed any of them helping.
Interesting.
Xanax would help because it would at least calm me down for the minute to like figure out why I was freaking out.
That's interesting. I've taken Xanax. I try a lot of the stuff that I tried. I tried initially with no prescription, and like my dad takes a lot of stuff, and I was having a horrible they could see how fucking insane I was going. I had to do a breakup, some other stuff, and my dad gave me half Xanax one time, and I was definitely like, I'm dying. I took this pill, and then I was like,
I'm not dying.
Okay, I'm not dying. But I was shocked. Like since then, I had taken it a couple more times for anxiety, and realized that for me, it felt like being buzzed, like I'd had a beer or two, and I was like, I would go, I can't believe people just use this in their daily lives. And that was the first I started to understand, everyone's brain is different. And that for some people, the same way Adderall gets some people super speedy and like they're something like that and have real cokey responses to it. When I take it, it actually calms me down. It actually focuses me. I feel normal. And you just realize, everyone's brain is different. So if Xanax hits me and it feels like I drank a few beers, then that's probably not for me.
Yeah, that's probably not the solution you needed. Because
exactly.
If I take it, I've had a situation where I was super stressed, took it, and then it almost had like a borderline Adderall effect because it like allowed my brain to like quiet down and really focus on what was going on rather than like a bunch of not important fake things that I was anxious about.
Yes. I think that's actually an interesting thing to think about too. I was diagnosed with depression and stuff like that, but learning a little bit more about my ADD, which, I talk about it a lot. It shows up on this podcast a lot, but I just think it's interesting. It's different understanding our brains, and let's take it even out of like we're using this literal chemicals and mental diagnoses kind of things as a thing, but it's a metaphor for your whole body and understanding how yours is different from other people and whatever. One problem can manifest as many different things. Like earlier, we're talking about like depression. Sometimes it's just a gut disorder or inflammation disorder. Like for me, depressive symptoms all came out of ADD ones, where it just was like you get this emotional hyper arousal, they call it with ADD, and so you're just so fucking overwhelmed constantly. It kind of manifests as anxiety the same way, or
your
depression.
body just like shuts down.
Yeah, but trying to figure out the mechanism that causes your symptom. Like we might have the same, I'm so fucking overwhelmed and just freeze up kind of reaction.
But you can treat them differently.
Exactly. Yeah. And yours might be because of a mechanism that Xanax helps. Mine might be because of a mechanism that Adderall helps. I think most people have a mechanism just in their body that exercise and drinking a lot of water will help it no matter what, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
But sort of like starting to understand your body. Actually, one of those the body worker people I showed on Instagram, the Move You people. One thing they say that I actually really like, which Instagram has been.
I just like adjusted my posture after
right,
you
just
said that. I'm like,
hearing
oh shit.
Well, that's why I think it's good to follow those people on Instagram. We're talking about Lilz and I were talking about how we have neck and internal.
I have like full body problems, but he was giving me some advice and some people he follows that like give you some exercises to prevent it because I've been doing a lot of hunching.
Normal life, just everybody at your phones, at your computers, and your cars, we're all doing it, and your body starts to hurt. But just Instagram, adding them to your feed, you see them all the time. You're reminded of them. It reminds you, and you start seeing the little things that help. But they say a thing in there that I think is really profound, because I've had body problems from sports and things too, and just terrible posture and stuff my whole life. They say no one's gonna give a shit as much about you as you. No one's gonna care about fixing your body as much as you, and no one's gonna know it as well as you. And like we say it on here on this, I like to say on this podcast, everyone's an authority on their own experience. You're also the one who's gonna know your body the best and give a shit the most. That doesn't mean don't see experts. Go see experts who are smart and can add information. But if you really wanna fix anything or improve yourself or take yourself just out of pain or out of anxiety or out of focus problems or whatever, like the person who's going to care the most is you, and it's going to be on you to really investigate what are the roots of these and how to fix them. And that's, I think a lot of my, I know that a lot of my back issues are diet based / how much soda I drink and like being dehydrated, and that my muscles can get irritated easier because they're already so like tense from not that you need to actually be willing to like commit, and like I know that if I was like much better about doing all of that, I would probably feel better. Well, that's why I like the word practice so much, and we talk about you have to teach yourself. Well, because everything's just practicing. You're just like, even the idea of practice is repetition, and that like I think practice in the way we interpret it and feel about it and colloquially use it, it has a sort of sense of pretend. Like practice means it's not game time, it's not championship. Practice has a sense of like, definitely, you know, like it's softer. It's not as serious. It's not as real.
But then you also like think about when you say like the brain is like a muscle that you need to keep exercising. Yeah. That if you don't, then you're not going to be able to do it
exactly
as well when you actually need to.
Well, and there's that thing they say, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And so I think that's really profound too, that even in your practices, you have to be examining what the outcome is consistently and understand it as a moving and changing thing. Continue this like reflection on what the result you're getting. Am I in less pain emotionally, physically, whatever? And if not, like starting to move around that practice and trying new things and really like you're just practicing being a human, you know, like, which is, so it becomes this weird simultaneous performance and practice constantly, you know?
Well, and then I feel like also just so much changes when you turn around, like depends different for different people, but when you turn 18 or turn 22 or whatever, you move out of your house and like you're finally living on your own and you are much more independent, you have to kind of like relearn like what you care most about and what you actually will make time to do. And I think that's been a huge adjustment for me, just like becoming an adult is like, oh, my mom's not going to make the appointment for me. Oh, that's not going to get done if I don't do it. Oh, that is actually something that needs to be done. Got it.
Dude, I fucking have that issue. I'm 32 and I'm still like, sometimes I'll just be like, I'll see candy and just be like, I can just buy all this. All of this candy? I can just buy it and eat it right now. You know?
I can have ice cream for breakfast.
I can do literally anything I want. And I sometimes maniacally do those things. Like just, it's weird to...
Well, and I think that that's the problem is that once you do have that, you kind of go full force. You're like, oh, crap. Like, no parents, do whatever I want.
They got to try it out.
And then you
for
kind
a
of like get to a point where you're like, okay, this is what is actually reasonable. And then it turns into like, I can do whatever I want, and not in a like, oh, I can do whatever I want.
Well, the other thing, I think one of the most childlike things I have is I can't put myself to bed. Like if I'm awake, like, you know, like a normal person will go like, well, I need to wake up at 7 a.m. So I'm going to go to bed. I get a nice 8 hours. It's so rare. So rare. I'm always like, I'm awake. I'm not going to sleep. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm awake right now. You know?
See, I worry about being like, I'm really not a morning person. If I wake up too early, like I am not, like I feel physically ill that I have to wake up at 7. I need to get at least.
No, that's really responsible.
It's not even in a responsible way. It's in like but then I almost get anxious because then I think for some reason I'm not going to sleep. And then in the morning I'm like, oh, is my alarm going to go off?
I do think I've given over the years, and I've tried to like cultivate this more. I've given my body a lot more like reign over my choices. And so I have to listen to it sometimes. And so like if I exercise more or something like that, it'll force me to go to bed sooner because it needs to repair itself. And I think like that kind of stuff, I guess that's just getting tired.
Well, that's what I was like. I usually go to sleep when I get tired, but also there's sometimes that I know it's not good to take them like all the time, but like sleeping pills on occasion.
Yeah. I get that.
It like if you really like, because I'll have times that I remember back in high school, I would stay up till 3 a.m. and like just like on the internet. And honestly, a lot of the time I'm such a nerd that I'm like teaching myself something. Yeah.
I mean, I gotta,
and then you're just like stuck in a hole and I'm like, oh crap, I have to actually get up.
That's actually really bad for us. My mom was talking about the other day, sleep hygiene. They say like your habits around sleep, like staring at screens is so bad because it's blue light, which is the light of the sun, and it tells your brain to stay awake, and you're laser beaming it right into your eyes. So your brain is like, well, I gotta stay awake still. So we are all scrolling right before bed. That's not good. And like just having it near you. So it's the first thing, like being able to go into a dark room, maybe read a book, not look at any blue light or screens for like 30 minutes before going to bed. I mean, I don't do that at all.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently, like, I mean, I guess we'll see what it does to our brains in the long run. Because this is
weird to, do you do acupuncture ever?
Yes, I haven't recently.
Acupuncture naps?
Oh,
I get it is the weirdest feeling because you're in this kind of like half asleep. It's like, have you ever had it where you're like sleep talking, where you like say something and then someone is with you and that they'll be like, what? And then you realize you did it and you're like, I mean, never mind, nothing. I don't know.
I literally think it's this literal
That's like the
Twilight
feeling
Zone.
I get that I'm like, in this, like I'm thinking about something, but I don't even realize how I got there or how long I'm thinking about it or why I'm thinking about it. And then suddenly he'll come back in and I'm like,
yeah.
How long has it been?
The whole
like, I feel
world.
like it's like meditating.
Yeah, like I'm not asleep. I'm awake.
Yeah.
But you like chunk down into a phase where you're like
and it's
kind
not
of an
dreaming.
animal.
It's very much
No.
like just thinking.
I think of it literally as a Twilight Zone because the world takes on the feeling of the color at twilight. Like it feels like amber. Like to me, the way it manifests is like I go into this zone. I almost remember them like they're a moonlit amber, like the video that plays in my mind is like has a glow to it that's like toned down a little bit, and
it's just so. And then you almost kind of realize it while you're doing it that it's like this is kind of weird. Like I'm really out of it, and like I also would say in a good way that it when you like wake up from a dream that you really were enjoying and you want to go back to sleep and keep doing it. This is like the only time you can actually kind of do that.
Yes. I think in those zones, which you do get into deep meditative states that get you there, acupuncture is really wild. I mean, after acupuncture, I always get like
I've gone in for certain days. Oh, well, I'm out of it for like an hour. I went into work and everyone's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry. Then there's like nap lines all over your face.
Yeah. I always think like it could be chi going crazy or whatever they say. Even if it's literally just the needles making my nervous system freak out.
I don't know what it is, but it's
doing
something.
So amazing.
Well, because the first time we ever did it was for an episode of the show, and I went in like not being able to turn my neck all the way both ways, and I left being fine. And I was like, okay, I was like, some people might doubt this, and that's fine, but it works for me, so I don't care.
Totally. My girl moved. She's actually my neighbor. It was a coincidence.
You should go to my guy. He's great.
I will. And
he has a really cute dog.
Oh, that's nice. Keeps it at the office.
It's like a nice little like second therapy that you get.
So cute, yeah. But I was gonna say, that zone that you get to in definitely acupuncture. I think you get in meditation, yoga.
I don't think I feel like I need the acupuncture to be able to get there.
No, yeah.
I don't know if I could ever learn to meditate.
Well, I mean, you've found the thing that can get you there, which is, and to me, that space is where you can really start to understand the distinction and start the conversation or further in deep ways between like whatever you are, and the body that you live around in, because you do get to this weird zone where your consciousness is like, whoa, weird, I'm kind of, hey, where am I right now? And you know what I mean? Like it does this thing where you start to, I feel like that's one of those places you feel the weird separation between your consciousness and your body.
I feel like you're really able to like go into your like, I don't even want to say memories because it's not usually like I'm like reflecting or being nostalgic during it.
Right.
But that it's like still at the same time kind of like as if your whole life is like there and you're just like, what do I want to like zone in on right now? And you get to just like pick it.
You know, they say like that whole thing about we only use 20% of our brain or whatever, like
which
80%.
Blows my mind. And that's why, have you seen, what's it called? When he takes, I always say it's the person who wrote it. It was about Adderall for sure. Would they take the pill and it makes them Bradley Cooper's in it?
Oh, Limitless.
Yes. That is what I always think about, because he like finally takes the thing and he like sees someone's book and like then his brain goes, oh my God, you've seen that book once like 20 years ago. And then he remembers it.
Yeah.
Is that really like, is there that much stuff stored in there?
I have no idea, but my to me,
and also when you hear about the dreams, you have seen everything you've ever seen that are in your dreams. That trips me out. Not that I remember them that much to actually have that, but
seen everything that,
so it's like your brain, it can't make things up.
Weird. That is wild.
So it's like if you had a dream about some person walking down the street, you have met them sometime before.
Well, that's
or
very
seen them.
profound what you just said too. I think about that a lot, and I think it's really good for people to remember. The thing you just said, that's fucking actually really interesting and trippy to think that your brain. Damn, say that again. Your brain
can't make up an experience.
So
I mean, I think and if it can, then I think there's something like you have something wrong with you, that if people are like schizophrenic and they can have these, but even then I wonder if like when people have hallucinations, if it is of stuff that they have manifested through different memories.
Yeah.
Because like even in someone you saw in the dream, maybe it isn't that you've seen that exact person, but you've seen 3 people that then got made.
But it can extrapolate. Your brain can extrapolate. Like I can see a horse and it's a brown horse, but then I can go like, I've also seen like I think just as long as your brain has seen that a thing
it's
can
like
be
if you've seen
different
like
color.
a spotted dog but a brown horse, but then you see a spotted horse in your dream kind of.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Or like have you ever seen did you watch Black Mirror?
Yeah.
The one where she like the insurance lady goes and gets everyone's memories to like It's like there was a car accident outside your building, so she finds out where the accident was, looks around the area, and
Yes,
is like,
yes,
oh, well, there's a window
crocodile.
right there. Let me go.
That one's crazy. Yeah.
And then it just showed that yes, you can access your memories, but you have so much, like, there's different perception when how
The
you
Rushmore
interpreted
thing.
it.
Yeah.
That like your memory might not be totally an accurate depiction of what happened.
Right.
But that's what your brain is holding on to.
Yes. Whoa, I just went into a weird zone. Coming back. So yeah, that you can extrapolate, but you can't. I think that is really interesting, because what that reminds us of is that truly every human being is only a product of their experiences.
Well, and even if you go even a step further, should I say even one more time, that if like you're anxious of something that you've kind of created in your head, but if you think of it like that's making you anxious, it's completely mental because you're letting it make you anxious. Think of someone that maybe if they don't know that whatever you're anxious about, they don't know it exists, and they have this kind of like blind, naive, like, you can really go internally and be like, okay, well, I can conquer whatever is making me anxious, because if it wasn't, basically, if it never got introduced to you in your head, then you would never even know it was there. Mm-hmm. I feel like I just talked in a circle and it didn't really make sense, but do you kind of know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. Well, I think, yes, because the point is that it's like,
it's all just your thoughts,
just
like
a thing
playing
you're
tricks
coming
on
up
you.
with.
It's like
Yes.
not something that's actually real.
Right, which I think is really important, because our brain is so good at telling us things are real.
I swear we're not high.
No, we're not. Actually, I'm not high. No, this is the point of my fucking podcast. Is like my podcast. So the reason I had to do it is because this is the conversation I end up having with people. Is like these things where like we're not high. You don't need to be fucking high to like. Life's a trip, you know? But that thing I think creates the idea, remembering that everybody's a product of their experiences and what they've learned and seen. I think if we could wrap our heads around that in a really deep way, it would create a lot more patience for each other.
Oh, for sure.
And
because
understanding
how something is affecting you. I might be like, that's stupid. That shouldn't make him anxious. But that's, I think, the biggest thing about if you have anxiety and if you have a friend that has anxiety, it's really helpful because I feel like you understand each other.
Yeah.
I have a friend that has anxiety that she always says that her boyfriend doesn't necessarily understand, and he like says he understands and he verbally like always says he gets it.
Yeah.
But then when it actually comes down to the time, he's like, but nothing's going on. Like, why are you?
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not supposed to get it. You're just supposed to like let them like just understand.
Yes. That's empathy versus sympathy.
Exactly. No one's asking you to like fix it. Just like be aware that it's happening and don't try and make it worse.
Be present. Yeah, I think there's a great cartoon of that, of somebody explaining the difference between empathy and sympathy. And that sympathy, basically, they use the metaphor, and there's a great little cartoon that goes with it, but it's very powerful to me. I've remembered it a lot. I think about it a lot. Basically, it's like you're depressed, you're down in a hole. You're like down in this hole. And they say sympathy pops its head in the top of the hole and goes,
So sorry.
I'm so sorry you're down there. Yeah. You want me to get you a sandwich? That sucks. And that empathy crawls down in the hall with you and just says,
Like,
I'm here too.
Yep.
I get it. And
it's not, that person isn't pulling them out of the hole.
no, you're not pulling them out of the hole.
But they're just there if you need them to maybe then help you get out of the hole.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and when we say I get down in the hole, that also doesn't mean that they're going, I think this is a problem a lot of people have codependently, is they think that means like, it would be like if somebody had a broken leg and you're like, oh my God, you have a broken leg? And then you took a rock and smashed it in your leg and you're like, no, I have one too, you know? Oh, like that's not helpful. No. Be safe. You can't help anybody with your broken leg. You need to help be strong to pull people out. Take care of yourself first. Be well so you can do good.
There you go.
But that is very profound and also beautiful to know that like all of our trying, all of our like feeling like this need constantly to do a thing, to strive, that sometimes the most important thing is to not. This is something that's very hard for me because I'm very with my brain. I'm very about like, something's wrong. How can I fix it? How can I dig out of this hole? How can I fucking figure this thing out? I have friends who have anxiety or like loved ones. It's been a lot for me to learn that when they're having episodes, and I still struggle with it because I'm like, come on, we're going to talk out of this. We're going to figure it. Yeah. And that like, it's actually not even helpful in the moment. That what's really helpful is just being there and just saying like, it's okay and I love you.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're going to be okay. And even maybe not even that. Maybe that comes across as a lie to them. Be like, it's not going to be okay. And so you just have to be patient and be there with love.
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful idea that like the tribal instinct is so strong, the familial instinct is so strong that just knowing, don't even have to be touching, just knowing a hand is there if you need it.
Well, and that's, I feel like there's so many like teens that are very like secluded and alone, and they're like, oh, no one understands me, no one cares. But that a lot of the time I think it's also the people not letting someone else in and like accepting that other people might care.
Right. I think then it becomes, because you also can't go like, if someone's going to do that, you can't go like, you can't force them to accept you in. Be like, this is what's going to be good for you. So it does take a lot of patience and just
it's
not even
delicate
patience, boundaries.
Yeah.
Just boundaries and knowing who you are and going like, all right, well, I'm here if you want something.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to play this game with you. You know, I'm not going to be part of your funny save you play. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's huge. But because I also think the understanding the sum of experiences thing would help us be better with each other with discussions of morality and politics and things like that. Because I think a moral issue comes up, like liberal versus conservative stuff or something, and we tend to go like, what the fuck is wrong with you that you don't understand what you're doing is wrong and it's hurting people? And that kind of thing makes sense. It makes sense that you'd be passionate about the well-being of other humans and stuff in politics or whatever. But not taking the moment to go like, this person is literally only the product of their experiences. Like, they've never met somebody different than them. So you like, I was
what I was saying earlier about that you can't be anxious about something if you didn't know it exists.
Yes.
That these people are literally like, well, no, that's all they've ever been taught.
Yeah.
So it's like, on one hand, you want to be like, what the fuck are you doing? But then on the other, you're like, I mean, but it just is frustrating also that a lot of people are so closed-minded on different sides that they aren't willing to recognize that it is a sum of experiences thing that is making them so closed-minded.
Yes. Well, I think that there's two things of that. One thought I had about that is just I talked about this with Lee Newton a little bit, but like, we're not allowed to be wrong. You know, if you say you're wrong, that means you're going to get punished or something like that. So if somebody is told that they're wrong, and according to all their experiences, they're not wrong, then they're like, I don't deserve to be punished, so fuck you. I'm going to double down on not being wrong. Instead of going like, this person's saying I'm wrong. And that would be okay if I was wrong. I'd like to learn something new. If we made it okay for that and there was space for that, then I think people would be more likely to say like, well, what do you mean? Because as far as I know, I'm right. And I'd hate to be doing something wrong. Please explain to me why it's wrong. But that's not... But
we're also in this climate that everyone thinks they're right constantly.
Yes. And you know what? I think bottom line is they're all right. Like, according to their experiences and things and morality, most likely they are quote unquote right. Like, they're acting in accord with the moral codes that they've been taught, the things that they've seen. You know, which is like, there are moral codes that like, I thought this about the Wall Street crash and shit like that. Like, when everybody's surprised that like the stock market closes because of the subprime mortgages, because like basically because a bunch of bankers went out and did shady fucking shit, you know, you're like, wait a minute.
When do people not do shady shit with money, first of all?
Well, exactly. But I would suggest the possibility that you literally put them through schools, like colleges, teaching them the morally correct thing to do. The core mission of your job as a banker, as a business person in the world, is the bottom line, is the shareholders' money, is to make as much profit as possible for you. And that's the goal. Any other thing beyond that, and then you're surprised when the whole thing becomes completely predatory, eats itself alive, and crashes. But you told everybody that being a good boy, being a good banker, a good accountant, a good person was to follow these principles. And if we could really understand each other as always, in a weird way, operating from a sense of good faith morality. Oh, well, they told me in the church that if you're gay, you go to hell, you know? Like, I don't want people to go to hell. They love people.
For me, you know? If this is a different tangent, which I don't know if we need to go on right now, I'm not a religious person at all. The Bible shit about gay people,
it's insane.
I truly cannot understand, because I'm like, that's fine if that's what you were brought up learning and you're like, okay, this book taught me this, but how do you not have the common sense or just like more bigger view of the world, to not like to pull back for a second and be like, this book was written when
yes.
and by like people that like, who were they? Like,
yes.
No, like that's not how you can. It literally text on a piece of paper is going to like suddenly change the laws for like an entire country. I'm like, how could you possibly?
It's totally fucking insane for a lot of reasons. I mean, like one thing I think about, okay, like when thousands of years, let's say we're 2,000 years ago, like survival is a different thing. Keeping humanity alive is a different situation. And one thing I thought about, like when people look at like slavery and just generally like capitalist principles of like that always benefit a high class and everybody else is kind of subhuman to them, up to and including today. But even of looking at like hard real slavery and stuff like that, like humanity as an organism that wishes to perpetuate itself doesn't need everybody to do well. It just needs some of them to do well enough to keep procreating. And if that means that some of those organisms decided that the rest of the humans are less than humans, and actually we're gonna have a better chance of surviving if we treat some of them as less and disposable, our family will survive. Great. That doesn't matter to the organism because it just wants to perpetuate itself. And if you are living in a climate where potentially it's true that there's not enough to go around, or it's very dangerous and very risky, or you could just fall and hit a rock and get a little scratch infection and die in a couple weeks, I can understand that you would put some fucking mystical rules together and say like, hey, boys don't have sex with boys, make babies, because whatever, you know? You can kind of start to understand why they would say, don't eat these kind of animals, don't eat pigs, don't eat shellfish, don't eat these things, because sometimes they're infected, people get sick and then they die. So we're just going to eat these things that we've had pretty good luck with. You can kind of understand the logic.
Then it's like, this is working, so let's do this.
Right.
And they don't.
And then fast forward thousands of years.
Where evolution and things have changed.
We have antibiotics and there's enough to go around for fucking everybody. And there's so much fucking space for everybody's weird ass dreams and things to like express themselves however the fuck they want to be. And you're still reading this fucking book.
And this is such a random thing to pull in here, but have you ever seen Ancient Aliens?
I have watched some Ancient Aliens and I love that shit.
Okay, so it was like, I haven't seen a ton of it, but I watched the first, they're like long episodes too, I think. I watched the first couple, and the first one was all about, I think it was a lot of Egypt and religion and how there's like theories. I'm gonna sound crazy, and I don't necessarily believe all of it, but there's some stuff that it's like that like, how did they build the pyramids? Right. Because all of the bricks were too heavy and that humans couldn't have moved them, and that like there's certain situations, and again, not saying that this is actually something I believe or actually the case, but I do think it's a very interesting point that with religion, for example, when you're reading stuff about like an angel or like something like very miraculous and like a phenomenon that happens, the amount of language that was available to them when that was happening was not what we have now.
Right.
So the way you were able to explain something happening, it was like, so basically the way the show made it sound was like, say an alien descends out of the sky, and also aliens like not thinking they're like green people. It's like, no, just like other kind of human type organisms, because how would it possibly
be
just
us,
be us?
Like time traveling?
Regardless, that they like basically come down and then like give something to people to like the math equations and things they were able to do.
Well, listen to this shit. I mean, think about this. Like
that, then maybe it was interpreted as like, no, it was an angel that flew down from heaven, and you're like, well. Yeah, but that's just what you called
limited
it.
Tools. Yeah.
Exactly.
There are tribes still, and you can see video of some of it, like in the Amazon, that have never seen people, and they discover them, and they fucking buzz over in a helicopter. You know what I mean? And so you go like, whoa.
Like, how did they explain that? Yeah, exactly.
How the fuck would they explain it? And also, there's this. I heard this guy talk for a while about this kind of stuff. He's like one of those Egyptologist people, and there's some people who have theories that like, this fucking blows my mind. I love this shit, but they think that like, potentially there were much more advanced societies, even as advanced like our
and
society.
And then it like kind of was like an apocalypse, basically, and then we started over.
If we all died right now in 10,000 years or
they
something like that,
know we were ever here.
Literally nothing. Yeah. Literally nothing.
Well, and that's, I literally got goosebumps. That's why I think it's also interesting, because like, I don't know where the fuck anything came from, and I don't have my own real theories, but like, it's so interesting to hear perspectives like that, because I think that people that are so obsessed with this book that tells them what's right and wrong, and that's, at the end of the day, I feel like religion comes down to a lot of it as like a moral code. Yeah. But then so much of the stuff that overly like really radical religious people do is something that you like would obviously not line up with any kind of moral code, regardless of the religion.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's definitely true.
Like, so you're gonna totally ignore the fact that it says like, don't kill people, don't do this, don't be mean, don't like all this stuff. You're gonna ignore all of that to then listen to the one thing that it says on this page.
Yeah. I think that is definitely insane. I was thinking, because about the thing about the potential, well, they said like stone structures you would still be able to see a little bit of leftover from, so which is why pyramids or like things like that, but like everything else, steel, rubber, everything would be gone. And also the point they made was like, if comets hit now, like if comets hit the planet, flooded everybody, we're all living again, like we would be less likely to survive than those tribes in the Amazon. Because the tribes in the Amazon are already living off the land. They know all those skills. We've lost all those skills. Yeah. We can't hunt. We can't like run as, in the micro.
Yeah, like my mom just made me buy my earthquake kit. I have my like solar charger. And
yeah. And there's
the things that we would all need to survive. But then like otherwise there's people in the, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I'm like, you hear that and then you're like, well, fuck. You're like, yeah. What if during Egypt times or whatever, like, those angels, what if on the other side of the world there was just like us?
Yep.
And the people that were running around in the tribes were like not.
What if they're like fucking escalators inside the pyramids?
And like the fucking flood that like, like every tribe, everybody has a flood myth.
Well, and that was another really interesting thing about Ancient Aliens, is that it brought up a lot of religious references that are throughout so many and different like writings, all the different languages and symbols and stuff,
hieroglyphics and stuff.
That there's like similar ones found on opposite ends of the world.
Yes.
So it's like how, and like everyone is coming up with their religions, but there's all these like weird things that connect them all. It's like, well, then how did you all get the same story, and how did you all...
Some of those people, okay, well, there's a couple ideas. I mean, like Joseph Campbell talks about monomyth stuff and like Jungian stuff. Like we all just kind of share some weird similar dreams and archetypes, which, I think is interesting. Like, we all kind of have a vision and an association with a spider and with animal totems.
Or like I'd also say, like, I'm sure... So I'm not very well versed in hieroglyphics, but that a lot of it were like a lot of them were symbols for things. So it's like, if it's a drawing of a tree, then you're going to have a drawing. But I think the ones that the show was showing were things that it was like,
strange.
How there's no way that someone could have come up with those just completely on coincidence. Just like how the world does not.
Right. Well, but then there is that thing that happens. Like somebody makes a scientific discovery and like someone on the other side of the world, completely independent, made a similar one around the exact same time. Totally. Like there is a weird.
I would say that is harder for me to, or easier for me to believe than like having an entirely. It wasn't like, oh, that symbol kind of looks like that. It was like full on like languages and phrases and stuff that were the same.
That is crazy. I mean, although even with that stuff, I think it's interesting. It's same thing with Judeo-Christian texts or like religious texts, like so many of the same stories over and over. The same, like a son of God and he was killed and he died for the things, is like that's the same story as of like Odin, basically. Like Odin, like the god in Norse mythology, the guy who's one eye, he's Thor's dad. He like the way his origin story is that he died, was hung on this tree for 3 days, just like Jesus died, was hung on the cross for 3 days. They pierced his side with this thing, blah blah. He came back from the dead. It's like the same story.
So then for stuff like that, it's like, how do you know that? I'm like, hopefully no one gets. I feel like if you're offended, then you shouldn't be watching or listening this far.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
But
and if you're offended, like, think about it. Why does it hurt you so much? What scares you about this?
If
investigate.
If there's so many similarities, that how do we know it's not even similar to like when people tell like folk tales that like get passed down from generations, and there's like little variations, but it's like same. Someone hears a story and they're like, okay, how can I apply that to my life and how it will fit in there? So it's like taking the exact same skeleton of a story and then just applying it to where you need it. And if you need to inspire people to do a certain thing, having it be, I think it's also a political kind of situation.
Well, I think though there's then something to that too, that like there's just humans need to learn the same basic lessons. You know what I mean? Like how to be nice to each other. To if you do bad things to other people, it hurts them and maybe comes around and hurts you too. Like, and these are common things. And there's that sort of makes sense then that the human monkey brain would like figure out a similar story.
Like this is the best way to get this kind of thing across. Yeah.
And that like, that would just kind of naturally evolve.
But that's what always pissed me off about religion. Cause then I feel like it's like the end goal always seems to be like to be a good person and to like learn this and do good. And then it's like, okay, but it's very circumstantial and when it's convenient.
Well,
sometimes.
and so not being able to understand understand it as a metaphor to use, because I grew up going to a lot of church, Presbyterian church, and we weren't like super religious. It was just a weird looking back on it. I'm like, oh, I did go to a bunch of church stuff.
Did it feel more like just like, oh, it's time to go to church? Like it was a thing you did, but it wasn't
I was
like
part of
you
like
were
a Thursday group that we'd kind of sing and do some shit too. But I felt like it was like a babysitting thing. It was like we needed stuff to do, And but I learned a lot of the stories, and I'm really grateful I did, because the Bible does form a lot of foundation of Western ideology of itself, like how we make up laws and morality and structure things. A lot of patriarchy and stuff. A lot of that stuff you can see rooted in these books and how much they've shaped things. And so it makes me really, even the idea of hard work and, you got to work hard, and that's more important than being happy and things like that. Like that's all in those books, and being able to understand that, I feel like definitely gives me incredible context for understanding our culture. I don't think you can really understand the way a society is shaped without understanding like the religious text that underpins the majority of the people in it. And but if you do are willing to accept them and depoliticize them for yourself, because I think people hear Christian a lot and they instantly think it means whatever. If you can just read those
and I hope
fucking
that
books.
no one ever thinks that I'm like trying to diss other people. It's more for me that I'm specifically talking about that I don't understand when people do turn it into more like they vilify people using religion rather than just using it for themselves. They make it about other people.
I think
religion should be something that's for yourself if you're going to be.
Well, even the figure of fucking Jesus as he is would be. I mean, I love like the idea of Jesus as like the guy who flipped the tables over in the temple. That story. There's this just amazing story about like he came to this temple and they had turned it into a marketplace, and these like money lenders are working there like or something like that. There's like, and he freaks out. He's like, this is fucking the church, and you can't do business here. And he's just flipping all these tables over and going crazy. And the idea there, like. What do we? People would hear that story and be like, that means if people do money in a church, you should flip their tables over and hit them. They wouldn't be like, oh wait, so this story is about that the divine presence in humanity is inherently repulsed by commerce and capitalism and coin as value, and that as a way to define people. And you wouldn't. It's a fucking metaphor. Everybody.
Get dangerous is that people don't always interpret everything as a metaphor.
They don't.
My favorite thing that I've ever watched about religion, which this is not like a serious thing, but did you watch Love? Can you tell I watched too much TV?
I haven't watched Love. I haven't watched Love.
There's a new season.
I know the one you're talking about.
Wait, no, not Love.
Not Love?
Is it?
What's it about?
Crap. There's another one. Love is the
that's the hipster one on the
couple
east
dating.
side. Yeah.
Not them. Crap. It's another Netflix show. And
what's it about?
Easy?
That sounds right.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. It's a show. It's an anthology series. Every episode's about a different.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's whatever. The episode I watched, it's the girl from the movie Patty Cakes.
Okay, I don't know that movie either.
I think her name's Danielle something.
I'm terrible.
Ryland knows her, I know. Whatever. She is in an episode, and then it's Judy Greer, who do you know?
Yeah,
she's like
great.
The friend and everything.
Yeah.
But so she's the mom, and basically it's mom and dad, and they come home, they walk in on their daughter who's like 16 or so having sex, and then to like punish her, to like get her to see the light, they're like, okay, as punishment you have to go, or she's like 18, so she has to go to church with them every week until college.
Okay.
So and she's like, but I don't believe in that. Like, you're gonna make me go? And they're like, should have thought of that first before you were fucking your boyfriend.
Right.
So then she starts going to church, and they make her go to Bible study. And she is very smart, but like uses it all as like people are saying, like they'll read metaphors and then she'll try and interpret it like way too literally to like make it like, oh, well, she goes home later and she's like, Mom, I learned a lot of interesting stuff in the Bible today. Like basically it says like, if you're rich, then you're probably going to hell. And her mom's like, well, I mean, which is like kind of scary because like we're rich and like so are all of our neighbors. And the mom's like, well, I mean, there's things that are open for interpretation. Like it's fine. So she just does that with everything. And she like starts bringing home homeless people and feeding them and giving away their clothes and being like, well, Mom and Dad, like we have more. So we should be giving it to people who have less.
That's a very,
and
this
it's
show is
so funny.
Even that is very dark to interpret that
and then
as a
she
joke.
ends up like writing a check to the church, and then the church uses it to like redo the front of the church or something. And then she freaks out and she's like, you just used like 10 grand to like put in a new like step. Basically. And they're like, well, but it looks nice. And she's like, I gave you that to help people. And it's a very just like,
Yeah.
very stark look on religion.
Yeah,
but I thought it was hilarious.
That sounds really good. What's it called? It's called Easy?
I think it's Easy. I can't believe
That
I
sounds
can't
cool.
remember. But
I don't know that show.
Every episode's different, but that one was
that
my
kind of
favorite.
shit. I mean, I think that when we talk about the fucking Constitution stuff, and everyone's like, can't change the Constitution. You're like, what? Wait, the thing you say we can't change literally is called an amendment.
Yep. And that's, I don't even want to get into gun control, but
we don't have to.
I was like, just overview though.
Yeah.
I'm like, which I'll get occasional people that like try and troll me on Twitter,
Sure.
and they're like, blah, 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 and they like want to have a debate. And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I am not a politician. I am not a like person that is very knowledgeable about all of the policies. I don't know the solution.
Right.
I don't claim to have an answer of how we're suddenly going to stop shootings. If I think
you're the kind of person we should listen to. The illness of the society to think like an expert only. Sorry, are you familiar with experts throughout history? Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the fact that like 9 out of the 10 doctors didn't think bacteria was real? You know, they're like, wash our hands before surgery. Oh, listen to this man. He's barely even a doctor. Oh, smoke these cigarettes. You'll feel better. You know.
Well, but then also I think a lot of moral decisions and business decisions are compromised by political things and money and everything else.
Completely.
But overall, I'm like, I don't claim to have the answers, and I don't think if you suddenly were like, guns are legal, then there's not going to be any shootings. But I do think that there's certain situations, mainly like the more like kid ones where they are going into a school where maybe that kid, clearly they're very unstable. Maybe they wouldn't have gone through with it if the process was more difficult. So all the people being like,
undeniable,
right? I'm like, all the people being like, oh, you can't take away our guns. I'm like, no one's trying to take them away, but why would you make it so like a 13-year-old could walk into a gun show and buy an assault rifle? That doesn't make sense.
Well, because you're getting between me and God. It is a God-given right.
Oh my God, I literally have tweeted
That's
that,
what
and I tweeted
is.
God given right in quotes, and then put LOL after it because I'm like, no, we're humans that brains that made these guns that like you don't get to suddenly act like it's a divine power that gave it to you.
Well, actually, it was God who made you and made your brain and gave you the idea to make a gun, and so God made guns.
Do you remember the beginning of Mean Girls? And it has like the homeschooled kids. She's like, I'm not one of those weird homeschooled kids. And he goes, and on the third day or whatever, God invented
the Remington bolt action rifle.
That's how I feel. That's how I picture the people tweeting like really ignorant things about it.
No, I think that's fair.
Because that's what my biggest pet peeve with that whole movement is that so many people are like, these kids are trying to take our guns. No one's trying to take away all guns.
Literally, they said that about Obama for 8 fucking years, and that motherfucker and the rest of those fucking Democrats who had the House and the Senate and the White House didn't do fucking anything, okay? So next time you're telling me Democrats are gonna fix some fucking shit, they're neoliberal bullshit with like all their fucking money influence. They don't care. They're basically Republicans now. They don't fucking care. Anyway, we need solutions. No, but getting back to the thing, like, which I think it's scary and kind of important though to be compassionate about the fact that like the people who say this stuff are only the products of their information. Let us just repeat though forever and ever that like that document, this old ass paper that's dictating how we live now, was written when you could own a person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, literally.
By people who owned people. And every time you try to tell me, well, it was of the time, it's like, it's like,
well, and then even I think that, honestly, people are like, oh, the gun thing is getting out of control. Are we getting more guns, or also is it just like people have more access to information? Yeah. A kid 20 years ago wouldn't have been able to go online and go, where do I buy a gun? And if they lived in a middle of nowhere town, they wouldn't have any kind of resource to figure that out unless they were like friends with people like convicts. Yeah. So like, I definitely think the way that you're able to like literally look up how to like genuinely could Google how to make a bomb.
Yeah, I've done it.
I was like, I haven't because I don't want.
When I first had BitTorrent, I downloaded so much crazy shit
just to see if you would come get like
just
swatted.
To have it. Just I was like, maybe there'll be like a apocalypse one day. I'm gonna download this whole big thing about how to make bombs. But I think that has made
such a difference that people are like, oh, video games and movies. I'm like, no. I think it's that now it's just easier. So if someone was really pissed off and they think that that's an easy option that they could do, and that's
but you also have to be. We just are so insane and so out of touch with each other and ourselves because the level of disconnection to have to be like, I'm gonna shoot people.
I mean, I don't pretend to ever understand how someone would do that. Even with the YouTube shooting the other day, reading the articles, I'm like, she was mad about, and I haven't watched any of the videos. I've heard that
you can tell right away. You're like, there's
something's
something
going
up
on.
with this person.
Because that's, I'm like, she was mad about the monetization things. Who say that's true? And that's, I mean, clearly
that probably was the trigger.
Like spawned it, and then has a lot of underlying issues.
There's a lot of underlying issues.
But the fact that I mean, I would assume that this is because I am a person that is not going to go shoot up anywhere, that I don't understand how you could be mad about something like that and then think that the solution or how that's going to change anything to go. And then if you're going to kill yourself too, why are you bringing other people into it? And why, like, I want to know the
hurt people,
mindset
heal people.
To like, what is your end goal there? Do you think that you're going to like...
I think it's
there's
involuntary.
an afterlife, or are these people like, I have no hope, I just want it to end?
I think those people are also just a product of their experiences. And I do think there can be a point where you become, I mean, I don't know. This is just my impulse about humanity and extrapolating from my own experience. I think a lot of times we don't know what we're doing. I remember going to a therapy office finally when I was in some of the darkest times of my life and being really struck by the therapist asked me like, how are you feeling today? And just thinking about the question for a second.
And like crying.
A little bit. But more like saying like, they said, how are you feeling? And I was like, I don't know. And then I started thinking like, I can't feel my feelings. And then I was like, I can't even feel my body. That's what you said. How do you feel? And I took a second and it was so weird to go like,
exactly
whoa,
even,
I can't. And so I started to practice then of like trying to feel in my body, going like, okay, I'm sitting in this chair. I can feel gravity pressing my flesh into the handle of the chair, the arm of the chair. And I can feel the weight of my butt in the chair. And I'm here and it's warm. It's kind of getting too hot in my lower back. You know what I mean? And you would just do these check-ins to just start going like, oh, I can feel my body.
Like to be more present about you being there.
Yeah, and just to start to get in touch with what's going on with me. Because without that inquiry and examination, the world is fucking overwhelming. The cell phone thing is we're all a petri dish now since the internet. Yeah. Like the amount of information you take in a single day is probably more than a person took in a year and probably in medieval times in their whole fucking life.
Well, and I even think of like comparison of like what I've learned in college and like school and then what I've taught myself from the internet and just like watching other people's stuff. Night and day.
Yeah. And if you add in like all the metrics now, I think metrics are really bad for us. But so now you have so many numbers to define your worth. And it used to just be money, right? Which is already grotesque and terrible. And then you like add into it like what? Credit scores, schools scores,
social media,
what are your
salary,
health scores, and then social media. And how many new social media things can we add in every day? What's your like rating on LinkedIn and IMDb? And how many followers do you have? And how many this? And how many
like
watches do you get?
staying relevant on all of those platforms and making
what
sure
are
you
your
know what
engagement
everything
rates
is
on your followers?
Yeah.
Like the more numbers, the more things to see if you're valuable or not. And then I think especially if you're a boy, it kind of there's like a weird cultural thing that's added in where unless you're rich or somebody wants to fuck you, you're not allowed to be happy any other way. You know? Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Sorry. Damn, we're jamming.
I know.
That like they're just. That was us checking the time, everybody.
Sorry. I was like, I have to leave at 5. I got here at 2:30.
But you just turn into these, you don't know what's going on with your body. You're very overwhelmed. You're very unhappy. You have no outlet. And the only way with that you can seize back any sort of power or self-respect is some great act of rage and violence, because you're kind of taught as a boy, like that's one of the few ways that you're allowed to be powerful and feel good is to beat other people or hurt them.
No, one thing that I know that you'd sent me a few questions to even think about beforehand.
We're gonna hop to that
like,
and wrap this up.
What are some of the things you do to like feel better on a daily basis? And this isn't something I do a lot, but I did it the other day and it reminded me of why I like it is I did some branded tweet that was like 2 truths and a lie, and one of the truths was that one was like, oh, I was going to pursue a career in graphic design, and then the second one was I'm actually pretty good at throwing a football. And then the last one was like that I was on a magazine cover or something, which was the lie. The amount of people that responded and were like, you can throw a football? Yeah, right. And like everyone assumed I was like a little offended. But so then afterwards I insisted that Nicole go out with me. I was like, okay, well, obviously now I have to film myself throwing a football because it's like something I'm very passionate about. And I think I used to play with my dad a lot growing up, but it's such like a mindless, just playing catch. Yeah. It's a very mindless activity that you're like getting out and you're doing something, but then also you get a lot of like just very small personal satisfaction where it's like if you threw it well or if it's a good catch or something, that you're getting this kind of like, oh, good job every single time you do it, that just without even thinking about it makes you feel better.
Yes. That's great. Was that your answer for your practices?
It was that, and then I was going to say that I also I brought it up several times. I teach myself things because then if I can teach myself something or learn even a kind of concept and then apply it to something, I'll teach myself something to do editing in Premiere, and then I'll be editing a week later, and I'll be like, oh, I can use that thing that I learned. Yeah, it makes me feel so oh, good, you did something and you accomplished something and you furthered.
That's so great.
So it gives you a lot of personal satisfaction without being some momentum
too.
Just being oh, you're so good at everything. It's just you don't even think about it. You're just oh, cool, it worked.
I learned this strategy from my friend I really love where if they're really overwhelmed and they have to do a lot of things, they make a list, and the first thing they put on a list is make a list, so you immediately get to cross something off.
I usually will put something that I've already done.
That's so smart. I mean, that's great because that does create
or something
momentum.
that's super easy that I know I'll do. So it's the first one is order groceries because I'm a lazy piece of shit that will order my groceries, not go. But and then underneath it's clean your room and do this work thing and respond to these emails. The first one's okay, do something that scrolling through groceries is not a hard thing that I mind doing. So it's okay, I'll start with something easy and then we'll escalate.
Really quick about that though, that's funny that that instinct, right? That's such a cultural order groceries, which I do because I'm a lazy piece of shit. Here's an alternative thing. Maybe there's
I'm being efficient with my time because I don't want to leave because I'm doing other stuff.
But even that you have to put in an optimization way. The correct moral thing would be to do the hardest thing that I do. Only me, I go do it. Blah blah blah. So then we get past that. The second one is the impulse is to say well, actually, maybe I'm being efficient, so I'm actually still productive. It's good to be productive. What if it's we live in a really busy fucking area and just driving a car is really bad for everybody. It's just adding to the problem of clogging. Whatever.
And it's just then I don't know, it takes longer.
There's somebody already out there.
Do I type in that I want milk, or do I have to walk all the way to the milk aisle and then I'm oh, now I want something else, it's on the other side of the store? Or I could just type it in and there's
somebody whose job it is to do this now. Why not just be part of a collective where we'll help each other out and work out in different moving parts and just do that? It's just funny that we're supposed to be
I always, and that's just defense mechanism that I'm always joking and be oh yeah, because I did get everything delivered because I really do. But that even I get my laundry done too, and that Joss and I talk about it a lot because she'll usually get hers done. Yeah, and then I think she now has laundry in her apartment, which would make a huge difference for me too.
Yeah, I have laundry in my apartment now, but so I do it here just because it's so easy. But I've had it done, and it's so nice.
It's nice, and then also it's when you're doing stuff when I'm on all the time at work and I'm working long hours or just doing a lot or thinking about a lot, the last thing I want to do is have to set aside hours to do something like laundry where it's a lot of waiting and having to be very conscious of when things are done. Or I could have it be someone else's problem because I'm working enough that I can afford that, then I'm going to treat myself and that's going to make my quality of life better.
Which is self-care.
Exactly.
That's one of those things, laundry stuff that
it's it's not even a laziness thing. No, it's more of a convenience and just
time.
Yeah.
I end up with just I just end up sleeping in a lot of clean laundry. You know what I mean?
Well, that's even after I get it done. It just sits in my room.
Yeah, it's bad. Well, let's segue on then and continue with the 6 quick cues.
Oh yes.
Because I'll say that practice thing that you said about having the if you build momentum around success and little hits of I did a good job, whatever,
you'll just innately feel a little better.
Well, my brother and I say this thing too. I think it helped in sports a little bit too, and we apply it to video gaming now. We've been getting better at video games, but using weird manifestation principles and positive thinking strategies. And one of them is winning is a habit. If you win and get used to winning and well,
it's because you're not gonna screw up or let something slide because you're worried that you're going to. If that happens, it happens. But otherwise, you have a positive oh, yes. I can do this. I've done it before.
You just subconsciously move forward, and there's so many other things that you do because you expect them to work, so they work.
Well, and also even with I used to play basketball. Thinking of that, you would never start warming up by shooting a half-court shot. You're always starting with a layup. So why would you dive into something and fail if you can maybe set some things up first that are gonna at least get you ready for it?
Completely. Yeah, that's great. That's right. You did play basketball. I always forget that. I forget about b-ball. Lilz.
I wasn't that great. I was good at. I can shoot threes, but I was I was really little in high school. Mm-hmm. So and most of the girls that played basketball were not. Yeah. So I was just kind of scared of everyone, and it would hurt if you got elbowed in the boob. That was a common thing. But the
thing you said about
even then I was practicing all the time because I always wanted to be good.
That just seems to be a trait that you have, because you said you're teaching yourself all the time. You edit very diligently. You're like you're looking for little things that are repetitive that you can.
I think it's always just finding ways you can get a little better.
That's really good. There's a great thing in a book that you reminded me too of when we're talking about this idea of like, if you worry about you're gonna mess it up, sometimes you're more likely to mess it up. Like one of my favorite books, it's like this. This guy just says professionals get embarrassed later. Like. It's in the context of like a fantasy book, and he's fighting this guy, and they're both like assassins or something like that. But like, I always think about it because it's like he fucks up, he slips and gets fucked up, and he's maybe gonna die now because of it in this tussle with this guy. And the point is that if that person spends the time being like, oh my God, I fucked up, I'm so fucking stupid, I'm fucked up, then of course he's gonna die. That's
but
what
if you were using
do.
that time to figure out how to like fix it
or
turn
to get
it
out
around,
and be like,
then yeah.
oh, that's the new parameters. Just move forward from the new parameters. Get embarrassed later when you're safe and warm in your bed. Blah blah blah. And I think that that's so true in life. Like if you screw up and then just go into your weird little whirlwind about like, oh, I'm such a fuck up. I knew I'd screw up. Oh my God, everyone's so looking at me because I screw up. Well, now they are.
That's a huge thing that I feel like it's you. And I definitely have this too, that you always are thinking everyone else is like thinking about you way more than they are.
Yeah,
like everyone has their own shit.
Yeah.
They're not really, you're not their main focus. And if you are, then something else is going on. But like at the end of the day, when people are, and it's usually people with bad anxiety, like will say something to someone and then think about it all day long. I can guarantee you 99% of the time that person didn't even think it was weird and never even thought about it again.
Completely agree.
One thing that I thought of that you, when you were saying that I always do like to teach myself stuff. I told you before, have you read about imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, we talked about that on this other too, which is or way earlier. We talked about something like that when like people, when you get in these positions, you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. That's everybody.
Well, no, but that's even like, I'm like always teaching myself editing stuff because at the end of the day, I feel like if I like went out, I wouldn't be like applying to jobs being like, I'm an editor. Like I feel like a lot of the times I don't ever identify with what I'm doing.
I'm
like,
get that.
I know how to do it, and I'm like could do a good job. And if it was for someone I knew, it would make me feel more comfortable. But if it was like someone going, "Could you edit this project for me?" I would be like, "Well, I guess I could
know
try."
What you mean.
Kind of.
There is such a thing as like professional standards at certain levels that like. I get nervous about that too. I can edit things. I have good editing sensibilities, but I still got to look some stuff up on Adobe sometimes.
Yeah. Or same with like, oh, I'm a host. Like I feel weird even saying that. And that's, I think comes to, but I don't know. Hosting, I think being a YouTuber in general, you don't really know how to categorize yourself because you're always kind of like master of all trades, jack of none.
Yes, exactly.
Opposite.
Jack of all trades, master of none. But I like your version.
I tried.
I am a master of all trades. I am a jack of none.
But that I feel like I'm always trying to, and not in like an unhealthy way, which I think can happen, is they're always, and that was one thing I read one time, it's like a type of imposter syndrome that you're always like you're a skill hoarder. Ooh. That you're like trying to learn all this stuff but like you don't actually need to, and it takes away from the stuff you do need to know.
Ooh,
and that you should wait until you actually need to know it. Like for example, if I'm trying to do something editing, if there's, I'm like, how did that person do something like that? I don't need to know that 6 months before I'm ever going to use it necessarily.
That makes sense.
So when I'm teaching myself stuff, it's usually more like general things that I know I might use, but like don't just like skills hoarder. Because it's true. That. Like if you feel like you're never good enough, so you're always trying to learn more, you're never going to be able to like. You're your own worst critic, so it's always gonna.
Yeah, that's a fine line between like preparation and no industry standards
and
stuff.
Just being like you're freaking out and thinking that you're not good enough.
Right, cross that bridge when you come to it.
Yeah,
I would say burn that bridge when I come to it, but you know. All right, what's something cheesy? Because we're deep in the 6 quick cues right now. We're gonna say that first when we're done with practices. Something cheesy that actually inspires you.
Lately, I've been watching a lot of American Idol.
Okay.
Mostly because Katy Perry's the host and I love her.
Love it.
But also because one of my favorite things to do is watch people, like videos of people's dreams coming true.
Oh, that's really
American
nice.
Idol's like not the best example because I feel like a lot of the time it is a little overproduced. But like there's some genuine moments in there that like watching people cry because they like think they're gonna now be like pursuing their career that they've been like training their whole life. I just like can't take it. Ugly crying every time. And then I feel like that makes me be like, keep going. Like other people are going to follow their dreams. You keep following yours.
I think that's a really good thing to keep in perspective about a lot of like lame Hollywood stuff, because Hollywood stuff does feel gross. Definitely is a money making thing. There's a lot of gross stuff about it.
But there's like, still some really genuine moments that people are like, I mean, Hollywood is very much, everyone says it's like, that's where you go to follow your dreams. And I feel like it gets this really negative stigma. But like, all the people in LA are usually like really hard workers and they're trying to do something that they don't even necessarily know what it is.
I know. I also think it's good to remember like all those weird, like those rooms full of people at the fucking Academy Awards and shit like that. My friend always does like, they were all drama weirdos.
Yep.
They were all like weirdos somewhere pursuing a weird dream, and now they did it.
These aren't even cheesy, but also to add to that, like celebrity graduation speeches when they're like
that's nice.
Honorary, those are really nice too, because I feel like they're always like I was 35 and like didn't have a job, and then like 2 days later this happened, and then like
what's your favorite one? Do you have a favorite one you think of?
No, I feel like did Will Ferrell do one? I think that none of them I don't even like watch like consistently. It's not like I go back and watch my but I just feel like there's been several that kind of surprised me and are just like, oh, I like that. I just think that there's a really false image that a lot of people in entertainment and even YouTube now for like little kids, that it's this like glamorous great thing, but in the end of the day, a lot of people in entertainment are like kind of the most messed up because they don't really know what they want.
I get that. But I think that's also why you end up in entertainment, like, because that is the human. If humanity is one big body and one big personality, one big brain, like we're the part that like wants to think of new things. That isn't sure what anything is and is trying to figure that out and dreaming and imagining. And so I think it makes sense that a lot of us are kind of like, I don't know.
It's just like overwhelming because it's like, what direction do you go?
Yeah, because you're just so in pursuance of this thing that you know is very real but very ephemeral, like very hard to grasp, and you don't even know how to draw the outline of it.
Well, and that's, I think even like years ago, it was like if you wanted to go into entertainment, you're like, okay, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to be a producer, and now it's like you could do so many things.
I think it ends up being like I just want to make shit. I want to make shit. I want to make shit that makes people's lives better.
Well, and that's what my always biggest thing for like when little kids, I see that like the number one job that kids want this year is being a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, love that, because I love that that's even a term that people are considering a job now. But at the same time, I think so many people that are doing that if YouTube didn't exist, they wouldn't have answered that question. I want to make videos.
That's correct.
And that's the biggest problem.
That's
like
correct.
If you do not want to make videos every day, then this is the wrong job, because I think people forget that that's what it is.
I think there's two like weirdly, subtly profound things. Well, one's silly and one I think is subtly profound. The subtly profound thing I think is that being a YouTuber, as it's interpreted, is that people get paid, which they really don't, like ever, to be themselves. Yeah. And the idea that like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Myself. Like that's kind of amazing. And so I think that's very expressive of where our culture, like our like human civilization has come to this point, where the newest generations and everybody for the last like probably 50 years, the kind of overwhelming impulse is no longer to build a great nation, to build us up, we just want to be ourselves. That's literally the impulse. Please just let us be ourselves and stop doing this weird thing where we need to build armies.
When before you needed a lot of less big picture than that, but like before you needed a lot of help and resources to be able to do that kind of stuff, and it wasn't an option to just like do it on your own,
now
because
it's just
you
there.
only had like, if you had thousands of dollars to get a nice camera or something. But I love, there's a video that Casey Neistat put out. I think it's like how to vlog, and he basically is like, just gonna tell you right now, you don't need a lot of equipment, you just need an idea. And at the end of the day, I'm like, that it's true. I'm like, yes, equipment helps and will like help you do things, but this day and age, if you have a phone, like that footage is better than the kind of stuff people were filming on 10 years ago when they did have money.
Darren Aronofsky, who directs like a lot of movies,
Black Swan,
and he did The Wrestler, which I really like, and he said that Wrestler was pretty low budget, that movie. And he said about it, he goes, something like, it was like, all you need for a movie is an honest performance and a lens. And I think that is the same idea. Like, all you need is an idea. It's so, people get in their way so much, and you see things all the time. Yes, production value can be a thing that like doesn't challenge the eye, so you just accept
that's like
garbage.
Something I'm like most passionate about on YouTube is that a lot of the time people are like, and companies specifically, it's like premium, elevated, make it bigger. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I want to make something that I could film with like 3 people in a room, because that's going to be more personal and come across it. I don't like it when a project gets too many hands in it, because then it's just not authentic. And that's, I think, why YouTube is a thing to begin with. Yeah. So
YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The YouTube thing, they're broadcast yourself.
Yeah.
It was like,
I also
not
think,
film a movie.
Right.
Which like still great. Love a good YouTube Red show. Love a high quality project, but I don't think everything needs to be. And I think having it be lower budget does make it a more genuine experience for people depending on what it is.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to think of like a dystopian future where like we're gonna have robots doing every job for every person. And there's gonna be like, there's 7 billion people now. There were like 3 billion.
We were just talking about that. There's, I guess,
in the 70s.
Robots that will like edit now. And I was
that's so crazy.
Which on one hand I'm like, oh shit, but then on the other I'm like, but you could never be able to replace like a human, like that take was better or that like.
I just feel like the only job that will be left that robots don't do will be content creators. So everybody will be a content creator with 1 or 2 followers, and your job will be to create content for one other person, and then they'll take their days making their content for one other person or something like that. I actually do think you're seeing a thing more with Patreon and stuff like that, and just thinking how many people there are. Like one thing I think is like if population has basically doubled since the 70s, like the whole world, there's a whole nother one of those now.
Well, and
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then also like think of like,
that means there's enough room for 2 Elvises, you know, or whatever. And the more people that there get to be, like.
Well, also though, think of like back in the day, there's how many like when TV started, like TV didn't start that long ago.
Right.
And even like the transformation it's had now, but you've only ever watched what you had available to you.
Right.
So now that we have the internet and everyone has these resources to make their own stuff, you're getting stuff that you never even knew you wanted.
Totally.
And I think that's why Patreon's being successful, because people are like, well, I like watching, like I'd spend 5 hours watching this YouTube channel, but I only like will watch that show like maybe sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, with the Patreon thing I think it's interesting too that like there are people who are not enormous YouTubers who are like, you know, having a living now.
Yeah.
Anyway, go to the Patreon for this, for my good bad brain. My good bad brain, Patreon. But give us your money. Okay. Real quick, let's jam through these. What's something dark about you?
I love watching like fucked up like murder mysteries, serial killer. I took a serial killer class in college.
Really?
I love anything just because I will never understand how their brains work, so it fascinates me. Like love crime documentaries.
I think it's too deep to dig into too much right now.
Will.
We're out of time.
I will never stop talking.
That. Okay, fine. I accept that. I think that's a
like
common
a new
one right
podcast
now.
if there's another making a murder or something.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are into that shit.
I have a lot of friends that I've like that is like our connectors that like, oh, did you watch this?
We won't get into it right now. I want to dive into that so hard.
That's a whole
we got to
other,
wrap it up for this one. But like, because I think it's weird a little bit that people are so disconnected.
There's just this like morbid curiosity.
I know.
I
think they forget that there's real people that like died and are fucked up, and they just become so fascinated with like what happened. You know, there's such a narrative, and it's dark to me. It's dark and strange.
That's why I said it, because I know it's dark, because it is like you watch it as entertainment, and it's like something that is not. You shouldn't do as entertainment.
You know, there's this whole thing. Public execution, if it was based on popular opinion, never would have gone away. Like it only went away. People never stopped loving public executions. They only got rid of them because the government was like, no, we're not gonna do that anymore. There's a really hardcore history. Dan Harmon did one about public executions. It's like 3 hours. It's fucking fascinating. Anyway, what's something you thought was cool when you were younger, but is definitely not cool now?
I was thinking about this. I didn't have an answer. What's an example?
I don't know. Like anything. It could be, because you could interpret it however you want. It could be like a behavior or something weird, or it could be like Jinkos.
I mean, if we're going like fashion, like I used to love butterfly clips. I used to love like those little like the necklace, the chokers that were like stretchy.
That's
I don't
good.
know.
I like those.
Nothing comes to mind as being like.
The other thing,
there's definitely nothing I was obsessed with that now I'm like, oh, you're so embarrassing. I guess Beanie Babies was a weird thing that like.
Yeah, that's funny.
Stuffed animals are great, but like the amount of money my mom spent on Beanie Babies and the lines we stood in.
There's an aspect to it of like my grandma definitely invested quote unquote in a lot of Beanie Babies.
Oh, we invested too until my mom sold them all at a garage sale.
Oh my God.
We're still in a fight about it.
Wow.
I know. Let's move on.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. That's enough for me. What's the last gorgeous thing you saw?
I would just say, like, I really, this is cheesy, but I went home yesterday and one of my favorite views that's like not anything like mind blowing, but just like, I feel like I take it for granted a lot. And then I'm all of a sudden like, oh, that's really nice. Is when you're driving on, I went home yesterday for a hair appointment. So I went to Thousand Oaks, when you're going down the 405, like right before you get on the 101, it like overlooks like basically all of the valley.
Yeah.
That I'm always just kind of like take a moment to be like, that's really nice.
Yeah. I used to live in Sherman
Oaks. And then
Oaks.
I keep complaining about traffic.
Well, that's traffic. It's horrible. But that is a beautiful one.
I love a good view.
I used to be really fucking taken by that also. It's very strange. It's very like, I don't know. The valley feels mystical and weird to me.
And I don't necessarily like being in it, but overlooking it is quite nice.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Give me a self-care practice that you like recently or that is a fave of yours.
I love a good bath. I feel like it just kind of like it forces you to relax.
Oh, that's
acupuncture too.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That would be my good one.
You think farts are funny?
I want to say no. Do I consciously think they're funny? No. And if someone farted, would I laugh? But like when there's like fart machine kind of like segments on things, I'll giggle. Right. Like I feel like that's something that like you can't escape. Like poop humor always will have some kind of like your inner elementary school is like, oh.
Yeah. All right.
But I also don't like to talk about it a lot. I think it's like a little gross to be like over the top.
Yeah. I don't send that one to people before because I'm always
like
curious.
Some people I feel like are very like, oh yeah, did you like to the point that they'll like send pictures of their shit to people and then I'm like,
oh, that's intense. No. I don't do the sending shit to people, but I'll talk about shit a lot and whatever. Yeah, that's so funny. That is a barrier I don't really cross.
I think that's more of like how you were raised kind of situation. Totally. Like if your family or if you had brothers and your family's like super open.
Yeah. The very last thing, I have a thing I started, this is dark, but I guess when I was in my late 20s, I started the Don't Kill Yourself list, which was like in a very dark time in my life. I just like to remind myself, to my terrible brain that was trying to kill me, like, hey, there's all these things you actually love. Life is real good. Life is real good. Beautiful, beautiful world out there. And it started with coffee, sandwiches, and lavender soap. So I ask everybody to add something. Ooh. Usually it's something accessible or like not too expensive. It can be totally like a metaphorical concept, whatever. But whatever you want, add something to the Don't Kill Yourself list.
My first two were going to be horses and puppies, but I feel like I can group them into one and just say animals.
Yep.
The amount of just pure unfiltered joy I feel when interacting with animals, like it's just so like I'm so genuinely happy that it's nice. What
do you think it is about it?
I don't know. Like it's just like I feel like that's like a form of meditation, like petting animals.
Yeah,
it's just like they're so like innocent. You just want to, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think they lack premeditation.
You just like don't want to be like on their side, kind of.
Yeah. I think because it's like an animal, like a dog will eat another animal, like a dog will kill something, but there's no ill will in them.
Yeah,
it's like they're doing it because they're like the way a bacteria would eat another bacteria, and so they're just sort of these precious beings that are like just existing.
Yeah,
and it's hard. You can't blame them for any of that, and it's such a like guileless. They're never trying to trick you,
and you have to be very like careful and gentle, like it's very much like on their terms. I feel like
that's really interesting.
It's like a weird kind of like relinquishing power control over a situation.
That's so fascinating because
I'm like kind of just thinking about it now, but it's like it puts me in this very like like I'm very relaxed. And I think it's because like I don't have to think about anything other than like is this animal gonna like not that I'm conscious of being like, is this horse gonna bite me or something, but that's how you approach an animal, is that you're like very much
with
like
respect,
exactly,
with care, and that makes me and so
like calmness,
because
they can read like
if you took your consciousness outside of all your worries and anxieties or whatever and lived your life in a way where everybody you met, you were like, hey, are you okay? I just want to make sure you're okay.
Right? Like however, like even the most tough person, like, oh, cute little puppy.
Yeah.
Like,
how much better would you feel if you took your concern out of you and just made it all about, let me make sure I'm being kind, respectful.
Well, it would help if everyone was like really cute and didn't talk, but.
I'm going to leave it right there. I think that's really good. Thanks for being on My Good Bad Brain.
Of course. I was like, I don't, bye.
No, that's it.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to let it just taper off.
This was nice.
Oh, weird like this.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know why that ending was so abrupt. I didn't like realize at the time. I think I just was so conscious of the time wrapping up. I think Liz maybe had to go. I don't know, but I was like, this is abrupt. So I thought I'd just sit here for a second while we, become not abrupt. Yeah, just let it be. I don't know. There's this this artist I really like, Taylor Mack, who I mentioned on the last podcast. I went to their show. That has this thing they said about like don't have to put a button on everything, Sometimes, I know how to put a button on stuff. You kind of go bang, bang, and then go ha-ha, and then it's like a wonderful wrapped up ending. But, that sort of buys into this whole like capitalist story structure, this idea of like climax, some big thing happens at the end. There's like a payoff, And sometimes it's nice to subvert that and just kind of go, and that's over. Okay, bye. And if I was really going to do it, like, I would just stop right now and then it would be done. We'd just trickle out and be done. But, anyway. Oh, I said Dan Harmon. I meant Dan Carlin. Two very different people. Dan Harmon's a Rick and Morty and Community writer, and Dan Carlin is the hardcore history guy. So if you're interested in that little tidbit I said about public execution, which is fascinating, actually, dark, but fascinating stuff, Dan Carlin did a thing about public execution. I forget the name of the actual podcast, but it's on the Hardcore History podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. History rules. Just thinking about people and that, you know, we've basically had we've been the same people for so long, but we did such different things as like community, you know? I don't know. It can be kind of nice sometimes to just get some more context, especially World War I stuff. You get a lot of context for like where we're at now. Like, that wasn't that long ago. All right. Was this enough of a softer ending to get out of here? I don't know. Probably not. Thank you for listening again this week. My Good Bad Brain. Patreon.com/mygoodbadbrain if you feel like tossing some dough into this bakery. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, reviews are good. If you can do reviews on iTunes and stuff, those are so helpful for ratings and nonsense, and they just make me feel good in my tummy, my heart. Oh, I think that's it. Hydrate, you know, drink a lot of water. It's really good for you. It's the only thing that's like for sure really good for you. I mean, there's other things, but that one's like pretty absolute. Hydrate, exercise, take care of yourself, self-care. You know what I mean? All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for listening. See you next week. My Good Bad Brain. Yeah, bye.